90.5.
And you're live on a power station, Radio Gold 90.5. It's some 25 minutes past 8 by the watch in the studio. The studio clock is 25 minutes past 8, and I would like to welcome you to another edition of the mother of all talk shows, ALHAJI and ALHAJI. This live on affiliates across the country, sponsored by TT Brothers, Cologne, Ghana Limited, Mobile Water, and Franco Trading Enterprise. I'll be sharing some messages from them when the program starts. The discussions starts from 9. My name is Senna. Number show is produced by Patrick Asford Boedu. From when the discussion starts from 9, we'll be live on PAB MCGH on Facebook. So do join us on Facebook from 9 o'clock. But this morning, we are still talking about Ayawaso West Wuogon by-election. And we have in the studio an engineer and also a security and conflict resolution expert, Emmanuel Dejo, to share his thoughts with us about what happened at Ayawaso, because questions are still being asked. Even though some questions have been provided, a lot of people seemed, unsatisfied with the questions, the answers that have been provided, and they are asking more. He joins us to tell us what his view of some of the discussions we are having is, and whether there are still lingering questions in his mind. Thank you very much for joining us this morning, and a good morning to you.
Thank you.
Well, it's interesting you are an engineer and you're a security and conflict resolution expert. I seem to be coming across a lot of, it seems engineers usually don't tend to stick to one position.
Yeah, that's true. As an engineer, you are trained, your brain is so broad that you're able to touch on other things. And I've traveled a bit, and my exposure has given me an understanding of certain issues, and has compelled me to go into security and conflict resolution, because it's an issue, especially with the oil and gas industry. My engineering has taken me into the oil and gas industry as well. And so I've seen so many security issues that are pending in those areas. So I try to understand why those issues are still lingering when you go to Nigeria, when you go to Brazil. I mean, they are there. And that is what pushed me into security. And conflict resolution, I'm a peacemaker.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe in peace. Wherever I stay or I live, I want to ensure there is peace. And that led me to conflict resolution. So I very much am into those fields. Aside that, I'm a pastor.
Oh,
yes,
that is natural.
Yeah, so you see why I'm into conflict resolution.
Oh yes, that is quite natural.
Yeah.
But we have been talking about this issue of what happened at Ayawaso West Wuogon.
Yeah.
We've had several descriptions for it. Some have called it an isolated incident. People have called it violence that should be washed. Everybody has to have their own opinion about what it should be and what it should not be. Now, I believe you have seen some of the pictures going around.
Yes, I have. Yes, I have.
And you have also watched the videos.
Yes.
Do you have any concerns? Are we making too much noise over something small?
No, it's not too much noise. The noise that we are making are very valid. I didn't only see videos, neither did I only see pictures, but I saw them myself.
You were there?
I was at Legon.
Okay.
I was there very early in the morning. I wanted to see everything, so I got there very early. I was even there before the ballot box was opened, the materials were taken out. And just about 7:30, I saw this SWAT vehicle coming into Legon with, a bunch of well-armed guys in the vehicle, and the vehicle is being driven. There are two vehicles, actually.
Okay.
The vehicle is being driven by a police officer. And initially...
The vehicle of the well-armed guys,
it's a SWAT
well
vehicle.
built.
Yes, well built.
And was being driven by police officers.
Yes. because SWAT vehicles are for the police. You know that.
Yes. So give us an idea of who this well built. What were they dressed in? How were they attired? Some of the things that they
I
had.
mean, these guys were masked. I mean, they were putting on masks. I mean, you would think they were going for some counter-terrorism fight.
Okay.
So when I saw them initially, the impression was, okay, I think they were just coming around for everyone to know that, look, we are on the ground. I was thinking they were the police,
Okay.
and that they were on the ground to just assure, ordinary persons that, we are around, so there's no cause for alarm.
Okay.
And so that was the initial impression, so that people would know that, they are safe.
Okay.
They are being protected by the
You
police.
said you were thinking you were the police. Were they wearing anything that is known, any attire that
No,
can be
subsequent
associated with
revelations have proven that they were not coming from the police. The police has denied knowledge of them.
But I just want to get a sense of, because the police have a couple of attires that they wear and that are identifiable with them. So what they were wearing, was there anything that by their attire, can you identify them with the police?
No. The way they were dressed, it was more of they were wearing masks. They were in this kind of national security vest,
Okay.
and then bulletproof kind of, with a lot of ammunitions around them, and then they were in khaki down,
Okay.
with a khaki boot, and there were a lot of them, some hanging on the vehicle, So, because I saw SWAT,
Okay.
I knew definitely this is the police.
Oh, okay.
You get it. But you see, the police are not used to wearing some of these attires. And for us to see them in that dress, we were wondering if actually there was something happening that we didn't know about as a country. So later on, even the election officers were also asking, but we don't think we need this kind of people around, because that constituency has been always peaceful when it comes to elections. So they were also complaining that that was early morning, about 7:30, even before we started hearing of all the shootings and all that.
Okay.
Yeah. So, it was scary. It was really scary.
So when you saw them initially, you were assured. You thought, oh, they are from the police, so there's no need, there's no cause for alarm.
Yeah.
But you said that even the election, the persons who were handling the election and the polling station that you were at were a bit uncomfortable with the situation. But the police officers assigned to that particular polling station, were they at posts?
They were at posts. There were 2 police officers, and then there were about 6 immigration officers.
2, 6, that is 8 officers at that polling station.
Yes, later on, when a couple of the MPP leaders came around, more of the police personnel came, because there was some kind of misunderstanding that went on there. So there was a call for a backup.
Okay.
So a lot more police officers came around.
So there was some misunderstanding at the...
Yes.
But when the officers you're talking about came in, so even from the start, there were 8 officers.
Yes.
Then at some point in time, some more came to join.
Yes.
Didn't that surprise you in any way? 8 officers at a polling station, because I also West Wuogon is like an upscale community. It's one of those places where we think a lot of the rich people live in, and so you wouldn't expect this kind of misunderstandings and fights over elections and those things.
Yes, a lot more came after the national chairman of the MPP withdrew the agents.
Okay.
Because
The chairman of the NPP withdrew.
The chairman of the NDC.
Okay.
NDC,
Okay.
sorry. NDC withdrew all the agents,
Okay.
Then that was the point where I think the Agbana came around.
Okay.
I think he is the
Deputy National Youth Organizer.
Okay, so he came around and was calling the agents. And there, some guys also came in and then slapped him. And so
did he say anything provocative to them?
No, I think when he came, he was just asking the guys to come. But what I realized was that he was just being beaten. Then
he was beaten.
I mean, yes. So I think the police called for reinforcement. The military also came around to protect the area.
Okay.
So I think the area became very, very, very quiet later on.
Yeah, and because you witnessed that particular incident, Derek Agbana's issue.
Yeah.
Did anything happen between the process when he was calling them to come and to leave the site to warrant that kind of attack on him?
In fact, I don't know what he said before.
He didn't physically attempt to
attack anyone?
Yes.
No.
He didn't attempt that.
He was just calling his guys. That was what I saw.
Okay.
Yeah. But let's see. This by-election, I mean, in Ghana, we've realized that there's always this kind of skirmishes around during by-elections.
Yes.
I mean, an example is Tiwa, Ekwetia, Chereponi, and all those places. But you see, it's time we move away from some of these things. Because as a security expert, the way I'm seeing these things, where it is leading is very dangerous. If the other party should also go and start building up an army to protect themselves, then we are heading towards a very dangerous path. And the Constitution also has spoken about raising an army. When you look at Article 210, Clause 1 of the 1992 Constitution, it says, no person shall raise an armed group except and by an act of parliament. That's what the Constitution says.
Okay.
Now, so with this, we cannot, as a country, allow the formation of such groups.
Okay. So you're talking about what has become popularly known as the vigilante groups.
The vigilante groups.
But in this instance,
yeah,
what we are being told by persons in government is that there were no vigilante groups there. If there were vigilante groups, they came from the opposition party and not from the ruling party. What we saw are state security men. So why are we talking about vigilante groups?
Now, the police, the SWAT vehicle is for the police.
Yes.
Now, the police is saying they have no knowledge of these guys.
Isn't that curious?
Yes. And you see, and the vehicle is being driven by the police. It's a fact that some of the SWAT vehicles are stationed at the national security. I mean, it's understandable, for them to be stationed there because they have a counter-terrorism unit at the national security. But all these vehicles are under the jurisdiction and the control of the police.
Okay.
So if the police should tell us that they don't know about it, then there are more questions than answers. So we need to question it further. The police will have to tell us who allowed the vehicle out, who is in charge of that vehicle. There should be some answers. When a vehicle is leaving the police, the numbers are taken down. The number of the vehicle, the person that is going to drive the vehicle, the occupants of the vehicle, it will be recorded in their station diary. So the police cannot say they don't know about it. In fact, the stationed vehicles or SWAT vehicles at the national security, before they move, the IGP or the police administration will need to be informed that they are moving.
They need to be notified.
They need to be notified, and they need to be informed of the operation. You understand? So, and the police is now telling us they don't know about it,
Okay.
which is dangerous.
And it becomes a bit curious when an officer of that particular service was the one who was driving those armed security men.
Exactly.
But there are also some other questions about election security and the fact that, for example, anybody who has ever done election reporting as a journalist alone will tell you that typically the police are in charge of security. Yes. So the police commander in that area is in charge of the task force. He is the one who assembles the men. And when he says his men on the day, it doesn't mean only police officers, but other officers that have been assigned to that particular task. Yes. And so he's supposed to know who and who is part of that team. He's supposed to have briefed them ahead of time, have an idea when they are coming around, what they are doing at any particular point in time. So I haven't done some form of election reporting. I'm trying to wrap my head around how come the national security, the Minister of State in charge of national security is now deploying armed security men onto the grounds. Now, am I right to say there are questions to be asked about the involvement of the Minister of State in charge of national security in the first place?
You see, when it comes to security, actions are taken depending on the kind of intel that has been received.
Okay.
Maybe the national security got an intel that there's going to be some kind of confusion somewhere. So, probably the police administration also think they don't have enough men to take care of the situation, and they might need the national security to come in. Maybe that is what happened.
Okay.
You understand? But all of them should be under the control of the police. The police are in charge of internal security of the country. When it comes to external, then we are dealing with the military. But the internal security of a country is managed by the police.
Okay.
So whether it is national security or it is the immigration service that you see at the police station or the fire service, they are all under the control of the police at the police station. You see? And police station security officers have specific roles to play.
Okay.
They are to protect the movement of election officials and materials. They are to maintain order at the polling station. They are to escort election materials to polling station, maintain law and order during polling, counting, and escort. And then they escort results and other materials to the collation center. They prevent violence and any other activity that threatens the safe conduct of elections. They arrest persons who violate the law, and they protect the ballot box. That is the duty of the police, not a group that identify themselves as national security or a vigilante group or whatever. It is the duty of the police. So they are to ensure that candidates, political party members, observers, and voters in general have the right to equal security with respect to lives and property. So if an officer is at a polling station, he is to ensure there is safety all around. Ensure no one tampers with the process. He can effect arrest. So what happened during this by-election, it's a surprise to some of us. Ayawaso hasn't been never been a hotspot, like just as you said from the beginning. So I was actually expecting that the government, the MPP has always won this constituency. You understand? So from my point, I was expecting that the government will allow a very smooth process so that the outcome of this particular election will determine how they've performed. You understand? The results will tell them whether they've gained more votes, they've reduced in their votes, then they can know whether they are doing better in their administration. That was what I was expecting. But you see, with all this confusion, at the end, we had just about 19.93% of voters going out there to vote. The presence of the well-built men and those massive people and a lot of security scared a lot of people. It scared a lot of people because in the morning, the voters were not that much. And we were expecting that getting to the latter part of the afternoon, you get a lot of people coming in. But that was when the confusion started happening. So a lot of people didn't come to vote. And it's an unfortunate incident, and we don't have to encourage it.
Okay. So if you just join us, you're listening to the mother of all talk shows, ALHAJI and ALHAJI. No, the discussion has not started yet, but we are talking to Mr. Emmanuel Dejo. Can I call you Reverend?
Yeah, I'm a pastor as well. So.
Who is an engineer, a security and conflict resolution expert, and also a pastor. Well, he observed what happened at Ayawaso West Wagon in his capacity as a security and conflict resolution expert, and he is sharing his thoughts with us. And I wanted to find out from you, because you see, you keep referring to them as well-built men.
Yeah.
At this point in time, are you clear in your mind as to where those men were coming from, which outfits they work for?
Yeah, I think Honorable Brian Champon, that's the Minister of State in charge of national security, he says he knows them.
Okay.
So I guess they are coming from his outfit.
But the national security, are they supposed to have a standing force of that nature?
It depends on the structure they have. I mean, they can decide to have one or not.
They are allowed to?
By law, I mean, I have not looked at the law aspect of it, but, you know, when it comes to security, you can have guys trained, prepared for, I mean, certain situations that might not require the police coming in. So that is purely a national security issue.
But the question that arises is this. Now, the whole election was being held at one place.
Yes.
In the Ayawaso constituency in the Greater Accra region.
Yes.
The Greater Accra region has several police officers working under that region.
Yeah.
What would have called for those type of officers that the police do not have? Don't forget, the police have several units under them. One of them is the Form Police Unit, which they do not deploy, just that they have to have a reason to deploy them. Yeah. So I'm trying to wrap my head around what would have necessitated the putting on the grounds of persons who people could not easily identify as officers coming from one particular unit or another. What could have given rise to that?
Yeah, you see, the police administration, I mean, after their assessment, saw the need to put a couple of police officers at the various police
And you
stations.
told me there were 8 in that polling station alone.
Yeah, I saw two police
officers
and about 6 immigration officers.
And those are people trained to handle arms.
Yes, to handle us. And I think it was a bit of too much presence of security. I mean, to have just about 8 people, having about 8 people manning just a polling station is a bit too much.
So from the onset, you had problems with the numbers of security officers.
Yeah, I mean, you see, that area is a calm area. Legon campus, you don't need that much security. You know, these are the elite. So they will not come and just misbehave.
And we understand even the students were on vacation.
Yes.
They are on vacation.
They are on vacation. But they were resuming that very day.
Okay.
Okay, they were coming on that Thursday. Anyway, so as I'm saying, it could be that they had an intel and they were acting based on that intel. We don't know. someone will have to come and tell us. Maybe Brian will be the right person to tell us, since he knows the guys and the reason for which he deployed them, we don't know. So he will have to come and explain further as to why he felt there was the need to deploy those people.
Okay. So, in your mind, as you look back at the situation, which questions do you think are still lingering that government needs to provide answers to? Especially because of the chaos that, for example, led to the biggest opposition party pulling out and a whole doubt being cast over the election.
See, if we want to move forward as a country, it's important that we do away with this vigilantism. You know, the question is, where are these guys coming from? There is this kind of winner takes all, and then when they come, these guys that we have right now, some of them were part of the former national security setup. You know, when the NPP came, some guys were already at the national security.
Okay.
They were asked to go home. Now, these guys that are home now, what are they going to be doing? They were being paid whilst working for the national security. And those groups can come up and form a group and decide to back one party or the other. These guys that we are having that are working for the national security, probably they were also part of the previous national security that during the NDC regime, they were asked to go home. And now they've been called back and they are part of the system. Now, if we have to always continue sacking people, bringing in our own all the time, we are going to have issues. It's high time that as a country we decide on what to do.
Okay.
Now, when a government comes, they don't sack the police, all the police officers. The police officers are still at post. The military, they are always at post. So let's have, a dialogue about some of these things and see how best we can curb some of these issues. Because if we can't continuously, because these guys, you see, at the national security, they are trained. Now, if a new government comes and asks them to go home, that experience that they've gotten, what are they going to be doing with those experiences? They know how to handle different kind of weapons and all that. What are they going to be doing? So I think as a country, we also have to be thinking about how best to manage some of these people. And I want to plead with the president to, as a matter of urgency, bring some of these people under control. Because if he allows it to go this way, who knows? The other parties might also decide to form similar groups. And if it does happen, 2020, we cannot contain it. Because once NDC or PPP or CPP knows that the NPP is going to have such groups, they will also form their groups. And so at every polling station, you have the uniformed people there, the police and the immigration and fire service people, the various political parties are also going to have their vigilante groups, trained, well-built men, to also man their polling stations. And if there's a little misunderstanding, you can imagine what will happen. People will be shooting here and there, and we cannot live in a country like that. So it's high time that we dialogue and see how best we can manage some of these issues and have a very peaceful country.
And perhaps your last thoughts I would like to seek is the way the opposition party has responded to this whole situation. We've been talking about the government response. Well, what about the opposition? You
see, my disappointment is on the Peace Council and these CSOs. Why do you have to wait until the former president John Dramani Mahama has to come and make such a statement before you guys start speaking or talking? Where is the Ghana Bar Association? Where is the clergy? Where are all those groups that were making all the noises all this while? Where are they? Do they have to wait until all these things start happening before they start talking?
How important are those voices in this particular situation?
I mean, they are important. I mean, the clergy controls the church. You understand? We have the Muslims there, the Christians are there. I mean, they control them. If a pastor tells you sleep on the floor, you sleep on the floor. You see, so they have control over them. So whatever they say carries weight. So you don't wait until we have people are losing their lives, people are getting hurt before you come in to talk. If President Mahama had not made that statement, I don't think they'll be talking. Probably President Mahama didn't mean to say that, or he didn't mean to act upon what he said. But he has to say something. There are people following. We have masses following the NDC and the MPP. So if the MPP is having all these groups and the NDC decides not to have them, I mean, we cannot stay in this country.
Well, Mr. Emmanuel Dejo, thank you very much for passing through. Maybe if you have some last words as to what you expect to be done to at least put this matter to bed.
I'll have to say that it's important as a country that we stay united. And the police service will need to up their game and manage the internal security of this country. You know, there's a threat with this vigilantism. If we allow it to continue, we will all run away. Let us not forget Rwanda, Somalia, and all those places. If we want to stay in this country, we don't have anywhere to go. This is the only country we have. So it's high time that the president stands up and take charge of the situation. He shouldn't wait until things happen like this before he comes to make statements. He should stand up. He should wake up and act, because we need a peaceful country.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. Mr. Emmanuel Dejo is an engineer, security and conflict resolution expert. He was speaking to us about what happened at Ayawaso West Wuogon. Big thank you for joining us. And we'll be moving to what has become known as the ALHAJI and ALHAJI studios pretty shortly to have that discussion. And the very first thing we'll be talking about will be that particular situation having to do with Ayawaso West Wuogon. And, I'll be having in the studio Honorable James Agaga, who is Member of Parliament for Bosa North and ranking member of the Interior and Defense Committee. Don't forget, there's a former Deputy Interior Minister. Mr. William Dokpo contested in the elections for the Progressive People's Party and has already joined us in the studio. Lawyer Godwin Edwige Tamakolo is already seated. Emmanuel Wilson, who is the Director of Communications of the People's National Convention, is also joining us this morning. And we are talking about matters arising from the Ayawaso West Wuogon by-election. We'll be discussing the aftermath of the by-election, the violence, the intimidation, the shooting, and the 18 casualties, and the police statement that masked security personnel were not from the Ghana Police Service. The consequences of the National Democratic Congress pulling out of the by-election and related matters is the Ayawaso by-election rehearsal for what is expected in the 2020 general elections. And we'll be talking about the impact of political vigilantism on Ghana's democracy and the peace of the nation. Then secondly, we'll have time to talk about the Ghana Integrity Initiative's Corruption Index Report and the performance of Ghana on the Index Report and other allied concerns. So those are the issues that will be engaging our minds today, and we'll be starting that discussion pretty shortly. We'll also be sharing with you the statement that was issued by the president and the reaction that is getting from the Ghana Federation of the Disabled, because there's a portion of that statement that they are unhappy with. So join us we'll pretty shortly. I do the face. Yes. So good morning. Well, we are live on your power station, Radio Gold 90.5. We are live from. We are around the discussion table and we are almost about to start. There's just a few things to deal with. But earlier, if you heard me, I spoke to Emmanuel Dejo, who is a security and peace resolution expert, who was speaking to us about what happened. And I also West work on. But we have an equally well-packed panel that will be discussing that particular issue starting from now. In a few minutes, we have Honorable James Agalga, Member of Parliament for Busa North and ranking member of the Interior and Defense Committee. William Dokpo is parliamentary candidate for the Progressive People's Party. Lawyer Godwin Eduji Tamakulu, who is a private legal practitioner. We have Emmanuel Wilson, who is Director of Communications for the People's National Convention. Well, so like I said, we are now live on PAP MCGH on Facebook. So do join us as we go through the show and you have the opportunity of watching what is happening in the studio live. My name is Senna Nombo. Show is produced by Patrick Asford Boydwe. Big thank you to the technical department for the setup and also John Batintura for the support as always. Well, let me start with the newspapers for this morning and start with Spectator. On the front page of that newspaper, they have mother of 4 commits suicide, and also VGMA Lifetime Achievement Award, honor deserving gospel artist. That's from Dinah Hobson. And also, sir, I don't know him. Policeman denies friend in court. Well, the Ghanaian Times has U.S. imposes visa sanctions for failure to facilitate deportation of 7,000 Ghanaians. It comes with a picture of Mrs. Stephanie Sanders Sullivan, who is U.S. ambassador to Ghana. President swears in 2 envoys. Comes a picture of the president with Mrs. Harriet Sena Siao Boasin and Mrs. Jennifer Latte, who are the 2 envoys that he is sworn in. And also, minority rejects outcome of Ayawaso West by-election. And it also has woman jailed 14 years for leading robbery operation. The Daily Guide has Peace Council hits Mahama over 2020 violence remarks. And also Nana sends 2 more envoys. It also has EC punches Kodeo and also starving lions at Achimota Zoo. The Daily Graphic, finally, as government retrieves 400 million cedis as inappropriate transfers from multinational companies. And also, U.S. government imposes travel restrictions on Ghana, selected Ghanaians, and EC describes by-election as successful. Urges MPP NDC to end political vigilantism. CSOs also call for action on political violence. So those are the headlines on the front pages of the newspapers we have this morning. If you join us once again, we are listening to the mother of all talk shows, ALHAJI and ALHAJI. We are live on Radio Gold 90.5, live on a number of affiliates across the country. If you are heading to Tamale today, you can tune into Diamond FM 93.7 and you can listen to us. And we are live in the Volta region on a number of affiliates. We are also live on Radio Kitan 95.7 in Saboba. You can also get us on the internet, radiogold905.com. And if you use an Android phone, just go to Facebook, look for PAP MCGH, and you can tune in. And you can watch us live, what is happening here. Before I start, because I will just share 2 statements with you, because the Ghana Federation of Disability Associations, they have an issue with a statement that was issued by the president yesterday. They are unhappy with some of the words he used in that statement. They feel that it's an insult to them. So I'll share with the statement they've issued on that matter. But before I do that, just a couple of messages from our sponsors. And Mobile Water says water is life and life is one. The choices you make can enhance or diminish these limited resources called life. Make the right choice. Choose mobile water 20 liters bottles. Yes, go on. It is an instant refill, door-to-door delivery service. Drink positive, drink mobile water. Mobile water, unique in every way. Call their hotline on 0244 65 939 0244 650 0244 650 939 for your instant supply, or visit us at Tema Headlight Industrial Area behind McBaron Hotel on Daplau Road. Drink mobile water. They are one of our sponsors. And also Franco Trading Enterprises. You can stock all the latest phones and accessories and tablets and flat screen TVs and laptops. Well, they have all that at reduced prices, and also Alcatel's phones like Alcatel One, Alcatel U3, Alcatel tablets on the Ghanaian market. With any amount, you can get an original phone to buy from Franco Trading Enterprise. Their prices are affordable. You can visit www.francotrading.com or www.francophones.com and buy from their online shop, and your phone will be delivered free within Accra, right at your doorsteps. Also get up to 30% discount on every product you purchase on using the mobile app or the website. So go to www.francotrading.com or www.francophones.com. Make a purchase. If you are within Accra, it will be delivered right at your doorsteps. That's not all. You'll get a discount of 30%, or you can use the Franco Trading app. Just go to Google Play and search for Franco Trading, and you download the app, install it, make an order, make a purchase, 30% discount delivered right at your doorsteps. You can locate them at Adabraka opposite Roxy Cinema bus stop, Accra, UTC roundabout behind the Despite building. La Paz, they are near Niboy Junction, opposite Prudential Bank. Circle, they are close to Odorikes. Osu, they are opposite Echo Bank on the Oxford Street. Tema, they are opposite Waterways Community 1. Medina, they are on the Old Road opposite HFC Bank. Hacho, they are opposite Hacho Station. Koforidua on the All Nations University College Road. Ho, they are on the Market Road opposite Amagashi Building. Kasua, they are opposite the Kasua Polyclinic. You can call them on 0302 225 651 0302 225 651 or 0546 133 188. Franco Trading phone Pepe Fie. So that's a message from two of our sponsors. The other ones, Kulun Ghana Limited and TT Brothers. Also there's a message coming from Third Eye Care and Vision Center. Is an eye care services provider that operates modern eye care practices with state-of-the-art equipment. Third Eye Care and Vision Center is noted for exceptional customer service, prompt delivery of lenses, and most importantly, a great team of optometrists. We are fully stocked with a wide range of sunglasses and designer frames, including Tom Ford, Calvin Klein, Swarovski, Vogue, and the likes. We also have all kinds of lenses and open to attend to all your optical needs. Locate them, Third Eye Care and Vision Center at Airport on the Association International School Road, opposite the Mirage Residence at North Ridge on the Sunny FM premises. You can contact Third Eye Care on 0245 938389 or 0543 87008. They are open on weekdays from 8 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. and Saturdays, that's today, you can find them at their offices between 9 a.m. and 1:30 p.m. You can follow them on social media through their handles at Third Eye Care. That's one word, at Third Eye Care. Third Eye Care and Vision Center. We are indeed your total eye care. Well, so that's a message from them too. If you just join us, you're listening to the mother of all talk shows, ALHAJI and ALHAJI. We'll start the discussion pretty shortly. Just to kick off our first discussion and the topic for discussion, that's from the Ayawaso West Wagon by elections and the questions that are arising with two statements. Now, the first one was issued by the president yesterday, and it reads, I congratulate Lydia Sarah Malasan on her emphatic victory in Thursday's by-election in the constituency. The electorate in the constituency has made an excellent choice, and I am confident she will serve their interests in Parliament with distinction. The isolated incident of violence, which occurred in the early stages of the election, was unfortunate and regrettable, and I condemn it in no uncertain terms. A by-election should be a peaceful and happy event, no matter how competitive. The police is committed to conducting a rapid inquiry into the matter, and I expect all persons who are found culpable at the end of the process to face the full rigors of the law. It is important also to state that a new patriotic party, the party from which my government was born, would never dream of competing with any other political party in unleashing violence on the Ghanaian people. Our policy, as espoused by the founding father of our political tradition, is, quote, to liberate the energies of the people for the growth of a property-owning democracy in this land, with the right to life, freedom, and justice as the principles to which government and laws of the land should be dedicated, in other specifically to enrich life, property, and liberty of each and every citizen, unquote. And that is what my government is doing. I commend the Electoral Commission for the professionalism it displayed in conducting a free, fair, transparent, and credible elections, despite the isolated challenge they face. The Ghanaian people have again demonstrated to the world their deep attachment to the principles of democratic accountability and the rule of law. Ghana's democracy is robust and will only go from strength to strength. And that's the statement issued by the president. And, well, there is this statement from the Ghana Federation of Disability Organizations, and it's titled, and it's for 1st February 2019, titled Ghana Federation of Disability Organizations Unhappy with the President Remarks about the Blind and Deaf. And it says the attention of the Ghana Federation of Disability Organizations has been drawn to some recent statements made by the President, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, which has the potential to portray the blind and deaf people in a negative light. The President has been reported in sections of the Ghanaian media to have said at the New Patriotic Party's final rally ahead of the by-election in the Ayawaso West Wogon constituency that, quote, "We came to fix Ghana, and in these 2 years, it is only those who are blind or deaf who are not aware that indeed we have done something." Indeed, this is about the second time in less than 3 months that a statement such as this has come from the President. In November last year, the President was also reported in various media to have said, quote, "The things my opponents say sometimes make me wonder if they are blind or deaf. They rain insults on me for doing nothing," unquote. The Federation wishes to remind the President and all well-meaning Ghanaians to refrain from such language which has a negative connotation for people with disabilities and therefore affects their emotional and psychological well-being. As a matter of fact, people with hearing and visual impairments do not need to see or hear, but can feel, experience, and contribute to the developments taking place in our country because they affect us all. As a federation, we acknowledge the positive work of the government and the President for certain interventions made to promote and protect the rights and welfare of persons with disabilities in Ghana. This includes increasing the District Assembly's Common Fund for persons with disabilities from 2% to 3%, initiating an inclusive procurement policy that will promote the economic well-being of persons with disabilities and inclusion of persons with disabilities in the Nation Builders Core scheme to promote employment opportunities for persons with disability, among others. The Federation is appreciative of the level of consultation and involvement of persons with disabilities in Ghana's development process. However, the disability movement is not much pleased with the President's speech as quoted above, which has the effect of presenting persons with disabilities, especially the deaf and the blind, in a negative light. That's signed Rita Kusi Trema, who is the Executive Director of the Ghana Federation of Disability Organization. So that's a statement coming from the Ghana Federation of Disability. So once again, my guest for today, Honorable James Agaga, Member of Parliament for Bosa North and Ranking Member of Interior and Defense Committee. William Dokwa is parliamentary candidate for the Progressive People's Party. Lawyer Godwin Eduji Tamaklo, private legal practitioner. Emmanuel Wilson is Director of Communications of the People's National Convention. So we'll start with Ayawaso West Wogon, and we'll move on to a critical analysis of the Ghana International Integrities Initiatives Corruption Index Report and the Performance of Ghana on the Index Report and Allied Concerns. Once again, we're live on PAP MCGH on Facebook. Let me start with ALHAJI. Good morning, and thanks for joining us today.
Yes. Good morning, and good morning to my seniors here, William Dowapo, Wilson, and whilst we wait for my learned senior, Honorable James Ragaga, let me say a very good morning to the ardent listeners of ALHAJI and ALHAJI for keeping faith with this platform, the most authoritative. We say as it is, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. And wherever Uncle Kwesi is, a good morning to him. I'm sure by now he's looking at his friends in Venezuela and how America is interfering with the sovereignty of Venezuela. For me, it's important that we set a few background issues. If you recall, 21st of November 2018, we lost a brother, a friend, a parliamentarian in the person of Honorable Emmanuel Ejako. Now you do know that on the 26th day of November 2018, the clerk to Parliament, Mr. Nyimedu, wrote a letter announcing or informing the chairperson of the Electoral Commission of that vacancy. You do know that by law, within 60 days, we should have by-election. Now, it is emerging that the EC chair and the MPP people therefore conspired, for whatever reason, to have the election outside the constitutionally mandated period. As you do know, the NDC's chair for Ayawaso West Walk-on, in the person of Mr. Bismarck Ayite, took the matter to the Supreme Court for resolution, and that matter is pending. It's also important to say that by the laws of this country, once there is vacancy in Parliament, there must be a by-election. And as you know, there is nothing unlawful for law-abiding citizens of this country to partake in the by-election, that is to say, to vote for their representatives. And so therefore, it came to us, many of us, as a shock when the morning of the 31st of January, we saw the massive violence in that particular constituency. It has always been said that there can never be any justification for violence as far as politics is concerned. Now, the people who brought democracy, the Greeks, who started this whole, they had always believed in constructive engagement. The Socrates, the Aristotle, and what have you. The belief has always been that the more people are able to engage and fertilize respective ideas, the better the society will be. I mean, there are countries that we are learning from. Great Britain, Canada, the US of A, among others. They have entrenched this model of governance called democracy, and they have done it in the past many years without recourse to violence. And therefore, at any time that violence is associated with such politics, you should know that that particular engagement undermines the rule of law. undermines the constitutional order and therefore an affront to everything that is called decency. So we wake up again, that 31st, to see armed men, armed to the teeth, masked, running and attacking law-abiding citizens in that constituency. This morning, I have listened to your interview much earlier with the NDC parliamentary candidate, Delali Brimpong. And he had stated clearly that at no material time did he, whether by himself, his assigned agents or privies, imported anybody into that constituency for the sole purpose of causing mischief or harm. Nothing of that sort happened. So without provocation, persons associated with the MPP, or to put it bluntly, terror groups associated with the MPP, decided, consistent with the party's philosophy that violence is a tool for political mischief, decided to go to the house of Mr. Delali Brimpong and without any provocation launch attacks, gunshots among law-abiding citizens. The video footages are out there. We have seen people shot at very close range, pellets of bullets just around where Mr. Delali Brimpong lives in East Legon, Baaleshi School, the school park. We have also seen video footage of a sitting member of parliament attacked, in fact assaulted by the terror groups associated with the MPP. In fact, my own deputy national youth organizer in the person of Adam Agbana was equally assaulted on the campus of the University of Ghana, where he was one time the SRC president. In fact, let it also be on record that a very credible institution like CODEO, and we all know what CODEO does as far as elections are concerned in this country. Immediately after the program or the election, CODEO issued a statement chronicling what they observed on the grounds. It's important that I read the observation. With your permission, I read. Some non-uniform security operatives displayed lack of understanding of the electoral rules and regulations. At the prison's JHS at Roman Ridge, for instance, security operatives who claim to be national security operatives position themselves next to the polling officials, and when a station uniformed police officer alerted them to move away from the polling officials, a pickup full of many more of the so-called security operatives descended on the police officer and attacked him for doing his legitimate work. It's important that this observation by CODEO corroborates exactly what the NDC has stated relative to the level of violence. So the claim by the Electoral Commission chairperson, who today see herself as an appointee of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, rather than the head of a constitutionally created independent body, posits that there was no violence in the election. It's a very regrettable law as far as multi-party democracy is concerned in this country. Look, and I read, DCOP Alex Mensah, Director General in charge of operations at the police headquarters, on top story on Joe FM. This is what he said, and I quote, "I have no idea who the masked men in uniform were. I came to the voting center with my men. They are not masked. We are investigating the issue," unquote. Now, if you put these two together, you come to only one irresistible conclusion, that the men masked who were deployed on that election day are definitely not part of the lawfully established security apparatus of this republic. You do know that the laws of this country prescribe anybody from raising any police force or military force or armed force without an act of parliament. So quite clearly, the involvement of these terror groups associated with the New Patriotic Party for the sole purpose of intimidating, for the sole purpose of assaulting and brutalizing persons going about their lawful constitutional duty of casting their votes, can only be subversive of the 1992 Constitution. In fact, such level of impunity is completely a thing that has become so associated with this New Patriotic Party. Look, we are all aware that immediately our president took office, a senior police officer in the person of Nanka Bruce was assaulted right there at the Flagstaff House, now called Jubilee House. He was assaulted right at the seat of government where Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo works. Do you know the government response after a senior police officer was assaulted by members of the invisible forces? Do you know the government response? Instead of looking for these men who attacked a police officer, they rather went, arrested the men who work at the CCTV room for leaking the CCTV footages.
That's interesting.
So, the man who assaulted the senior police officer was no longer the one that the state is responsible for. However, the persons who man the closed circuit room, they were rather arrested and victimized. That why did you? How come that these CCTV footages, which are only in your custody, how did they come out? You have embarrassed the government. And so they were rather the people victimized by the Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo administration. It didn't end there. When you reward impunity, the effects can never be controlled. So when Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo appointed a security coordinator for Ashanti region, these same terror groups, hoodlums associated with the MPP led by Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, you know what they did? They went to the office of the National Security Coordinator for Ashanti region, assaulted him and pulled him out of the office. You could see video footages of this man. when these men were arrested and put before a court of competent jurisdiction, a circuit court for that matter in Kumasi, these same terror groups associated with the Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo administration stormed the courts and released persons who were under lawful custody. Now, the response of the principal law enforcement officer of the Republic, the Attorney General, having been appraised with all the facts, decided to enter a nolle prosequi. Eventually, those that went through the criminal justice process were given a fine. The MPP, led by the original chairman and co, immediately mobilized and paid. Further justification for this level of recklessness and impunity. So you have a situation where, Sena, even a court of competent jurisdiction was stormed by these hoodlums. Sena, in this studio, the next one, 3 young men, in fact 2 of which I defended before the Supreme Court, just word of mouth, which they even repeatedly apologized to their lordships. These guys were given a prison sentence, having paid 10,000 Ghana cedis each. Word of mouth. They never stormed any court. They never attacked any police officer. They never assaulted anybody. So when you have a situation where even the enforcement of laws in the country is done on the basis of which political party you belong to, if you have a situation where citizens of this country feel like others are second-class citizens, what you do is that you undermine public confidence in well-established constitutional entities. What happens in that situation is that you are encouraging impunity among persons associated with the MPP, because they know at the end of the day nothing whatsoever will be done to them, and even when they are an attempt to do anything to them, will just be what you call something just for quote-unquote shaggy reasons. Sena, so you have a situation where today Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, in the midst of this chaos, in the midst of what is happening, will issue a statement and say we are not competing with anybody in violence. Mr. President, with the greatest respect to you, you have failed this country. At age 74, Ghana deserves better from you. Look, whether MPP or NDC, if there is anything that we don't joke with, is our security. Look, if you pick the MPP manifesto for 2016, you will notice that the MPP had a very clear campaign message which found expression in their 2016 manifesto. And I refer to chapter 14 of the MPP manifesto. And if you go to chapter 14, under the heading security, it is very clear that the MPP made security a matter of politics and blame the John Dramani Mahama administration for what they perceive to be the insecurity situation in this country. Today, the level of impunity, the level of recklessness, never witnessed in the political history of this country under a constitutional arrangement. To the extent that the MPP manifesto promised that they will ensure that every Ghanaian citizen will be safe in their homes, on the streets. Today, had been so undermined. That social contract that they had with the people of Ghana, on the basis on which Ghanaians voted for this incompetent, lazy, and inept administration, is the result that today a journalist can be so much exposed to danger. And not only that, men will wake up one evening, go monitor him, and kill him in the most despicable manner. Insecurity under Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. Today, the PRO of Ghana Ports and Harbour Authority who attend party go home the next morning, she is killed in her home. So the MPP manifesto promise that they will make us safe in our homes had been defeated by reason of this. We have seen a situation where a manager at Ghana Water will be killed on his way to his hometown in Bokrugu. That is the level of insecurity. Never. Today, our daughters are not safe relative to the level of kidnapping. So when you put the entire security situation under Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, we have moved to a point of basically no return. Senna, President John Dramani Mahama had cause to say that, look, the NDC as a political party birthed this 1992 constitution. We midwife this constitution that we have today. And in the constitution, it clearly prescribes violence or any form of it. And so as a political party, regardless of our antecedent, regardless of our revolutionary background, we have moved on and have adopted wholeheartedly the spirit and letter of the 1992 Constitution. And therefore, we have conducted from 1992 our politics in accordance with what is acceptable in decent society. However, the MPP consistently are taking our resolve to embrace the letter and spirit of the Constitution as a form of weakness. And that he is sounding a word of caution that no political party has monopoly over the use of violence. Madness is not in the house of one person. Madness is not in the house of one person. And therefore, Nana Addo should call his terror groups to order. I've heard persons associated with the National Peace Council say that why should President Mahama say that? In fact, they say they expected him to say, Fama Nyame, put his hand in his demrifa and go home. In fact, I will not take him as my leader if he had done that. Because when you have a situation where masked men do not care whether a sitting member of parliament but can assault him, we have gotten to a very dangerous end. When Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo is only interested in politics, and you know what? It is only one reason. Nana Addo has lost the economic plot. His claim of Shewasitina Natwa Bapa, his claim that he's coming to better the lots of Ghanaians, what we have seen is that he's only involved in making sure his family, friends, baby mamas, ex-girlfriends, and what have you, have their lots better at the expense of Ghanaians. That is why today, as we speak, we have borrowed over 50 billion within 2 years, and we have nothing to show for it. So when you put all of this thing together, you come to a conclusion that Ghana had failed under Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo's incompetent administration. I have listened, Senior, with the greatest respect, to the minister in charge of national security operation, one Brian Champon, justify what happened on that day. Now, from the initial denial of those men in mask, we are now being told that they are national security operatives. Now, who is the head of the National Security Council? It's the president. So, we are now being told that Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo deployed those men to attack those young people. Because as the head of the National Security Council, if your Minister for National Security now comes out to say that they deployed those men, because see, for a minute I was saying that, look, where did these guys get the armored vehicles, the SWAT vehicle? Where did they get the guns, the AK-47? Because you see, by law, you and I cannot go and pick AK-47. That will constitute an offense, unlawful possession of weapons. And that particular criminal offense is so strict that when you are being prosecuted for that offense, instead of the state proving your guilt, you assume the burden to prove that your possession of that weapon is lawful. It is like narcotic offense. The burden is on you to prove the lawfulness of your possession. That is how serious it is. But you see these guys brazenly holding gun in the manner in which they did. Now that the president has taken ownership through his minister, they claim by the IGP that he is now going to investigate that matter. I cannot trust that investigation. So I will rather plead that we have an independent body to investigate the complicity of the president himself through his ministers and security whatever in this whole dastardly act. You know what? When this president came, one of the things that he did, Nana Showboy, was to parade these so-called heads of the security, architecture. National television. Then IGP, you read your CV, Kandapa, Brian Champon, Joshua Chireme, this, that's what he did. With the assurance that with this man, you will be safe. Mr. President, we are not safe with your incompetent men. Mr. President, you have failed this country at age 74. This is not the country that you took over from John Mahama. Look at the peaceful manner in which power moved from John Mahama to you. Why can't you do that? It's because the NPP knows that they have failed as far as the economy is concerned. They have failed, and knowing that in 2020 Ghanaians are going to show them, they have then moved to their plan B, the use of violence, and more violence. That is becoming the modus operandi of this Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. You recall, finally, so that I leave, even as opposition leader, he brought in the Serbians, he brought in the South African mercenaries to train these paramilitary groups, these terror groups, to unleash violence, and more violence on law-abiding citizens. To the extent that even in opposition, the MPP headquarters became an outpost of insecurity in this country. So all that I am saying this morning, that the events of Ayawaso West Wargon is a harbinger of what is going to happen in 2020. I would encourage my fellow members in the NDC that the first principle, even in the state of nature, is self-preservation. The first principle, even even in the state of nature, is self-preservation. Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo had given you a blueprint of what he intends to do to hang on to power in 2020. The man knows he has lost every legitimacy to continue to be the president of this country. And the only way he will hold on to power is to unleash violence, and more violence against citizens of this country. And it is for one sole purpose, so that he and his family members will continue pandering to plunder the resources of this country.
Okay.
It is very sad. It's a very regrettable law. 30 seconds. My brothers who were assaulted in this process, once again, we are with you, and we ensure that everybody involved in this despicable act will be brought to book, not today, but tomorrow. Remember that there is no statute of limitation on criminal act. We have seen the faces of these people. Even if they decide to travel abroad, we'll write to the respective embassies of this country. We'll ensure that justice will be done on the 7th of January 2021. Inshallah.
Thank you very much. You heard lawyer Godwin Edwin open the discussion on the Ayawaso West Wagon by-election. Now, before I come to the man who contested in that particular election, let me just read a couple of messages you are sending through our PAP MCGH Facebook platform. Don't also forget that you can also share your thoughts with us through the WhatsApp number. Our WhatsApp number. Send a WhatsApp to 0233 995905 0233 995905. And Evangelist Christopher Mensah Gamley says Nana B must be arrested for assaulting Sami, and the NDC must stop going to multimedia houses. Kojo Opon Asamoah says, in fact, Mr. Host, after listening to the National Security Minister of State this morning and yesterday, I cried and I'm sad as a Ghanaian. That's from Kojo Asamoah from Aduajiri. Fokofi says, good morning, Senna. Where are the CSOs? Where are the so-called neutrals? Where are the pastors? Are they blind and deaf now? Well, that is something that the Ghana Disability Society are not so happy about, the use of that particular term. Says impunity has taken over Ghana, where mayhem and assault are the order of the day under the auspices of a supposed lawyer. There's a sinister quote. There's a sinister force on the prowl in our nation. It is a force of impunity, a force of treachery. It is a force of evil. This is unethical. This is criminal. This is malicious. This is Machiavellian. This is evil. To keep silence in such a situation is to allow evil to triumph. That's on quote. That's attributed to Pastor Mensah Otabil. Ghana is on a time bomb, and it will soon explode. NDC is also ready to match them boot for boot. We are resisting oppressors' rule. Musa Abatwa in Kumasi says, Senna, what by-election got to do with MPP invisible forces under the guise of SWAT or national security? Are we in Afghanistan or Iraq? I'm so alarmed. If care is not taken, 2020 elections will be something else, because the other political parties will prepare to meet any tag with mask booth for booth. I don't have to be a prophet to say that some of them will leave this country if power changes hands. However, those hypocrites who are saying JM should apologize must first ask President Akufo-Addo to apologize for his all die with die comments. I see nothing wrong with what JM said when innocent people were being shot in the full glare of police, and we are told those armed tags were counter-terrorist SWAT. Baba Musa Xiao Bonjian says, look, my people, the earlier the NDC mobilizes its rank and files to confront these criminals and hooligans head on, the better. MPP does not love and appreciate peace. God bless President Mahama. The answer to NDC victory in 2020 is boot for both. And, well, Alex Kwesi says, I ask myself if we really have security men in this country, because the lawlessness is too much And Ebenezer Bedu says there was also an attack on Sami Jemfi on Asempa FM yesterday by Nanabi. I wonder why the NDC keeps going to those media houses. And he mentions some media houses. Ebenezer from Oyarifa in Teman says, and Jonathan Tete Guba, if Reverend Asante can now speak against the president, how much more the IGP cannot speak against the president, how much more the IGP? I'm disappointed in this Reverend who only speaks when the NDC is in the news. And he sends that from the USA. Alasan Kuribawa says, if all die be die is good, what is wrong with boot for boots? And Abdulaziz says, the entire leadership and followers of the MPP worldwide can't stand one young white Sami Jemfi, now resorting to slapping him. Hashtag disgrace to humanity. And Samuel Nyamisha says, I'm sorry, lawyer. Is this why the NDC is relaxed on security issues because the MPP promised to protect every Ghanaian? Under the watch of the NDC, the invisible forces and others became powerful. And John Menson says, Mr. Host, good morning. Tell the NDC communication teams that they should be careful with the multimedia group. Zed is watching from Istanbul. Well, those are just some of the messages that are coming through on our Facebook platform, PAP MCGH. If you're watching on Facebook, you can share with us your thoughts on what we're talking about. And this one says, good morning, Sana. In any civilized society, when the security officers are deployed by any sensible security setup, and especially on an operation that is not terrorism, officials are expected to wear tags, so long as they are to operate among civilians. This is to ensure that the civilians can freely report any acts that are counter to the rules engaged in by such officers who are expected to be responsible in their duties. What we saw 2 days ago were hoodlums deployed with the aim to rain terror from the onset. Hence, they are having no form of identification, staff numbers, name tags, and having their faces covered. What we are witnessing in Ghana is ninja governance and nothing short of that. On that note, I come to Mr. William Dormo, and he contested as the candidate for the Progressive People's Party. Good morning, welcome.
Good morning, Senna, and thanks very much for inviting me to today's ALHAJI and ALHAJI program. It's been a while.
Yes.
And I'm happy to be here today. And let me also say good morning to my colleagues on the table and to the people of Ghana who are listening to us this morning, particularly constituents of Ayawaso West Wogon and the great and visionary 102 courageous voters in Ayawaso West Wogon who defied all the intimidation and the threats and went out there to vote for the PPP vision of transforming Ayawaso West Wogon constituency from what it is today into a world-class constituency. I congratulate those 102 voters. I'm not able to identify them because everybody say they support you. So I am encouraged that even in the face of the threats and intimidation, 102 managed to vote for my vision of transforming Ayawaso West Wogon into a world-class constituency. Now, having said that, I'm hearing a lot of commentary, a lot of statements, and so on and so forth. And I think that many of them are missing the point. Where we should really begin this discussion is to find out the mindset and orientation, the objectives with which the New Patriotic Party, the incumbent, went into this by-election, which should have been a simple opportunity for the electorate in that constituency to go and make a choice between or among the NDC, NPP, PPP, and the other LPG. It turns out that the NPP, having come into power with a lot of promises, that they have come to the realization that they will not be able to deliver on, panicked. They panicked heavily that this was going to be a kind of midterm election for them, and that the majority of the people who are disappointed in the many promises for which only little have been delivered would respond by voting against them in the constituency. And indeed, as a participant in the constituency, I did a lot of work. My strategy was to engage people with valid votes. So I went to their homes, I went to their shops, I went to their workplaces, and I engaged them. And they expressed their disappointment. They said they were tired of the duopoly. They were not going to vote. So my task was to encourage them to come out and vote, because I had a vision that was clearly different from what the competition NDC and NPP were, offering. So, based on their position that they were tired of the duopoly and that they were not even interested in voting, I left their homes and offices believing that if they were not going to vote for the duopoly, then they were going to turn it to the, PPP. So early morning when the violence started, I became really concerned, because here are electorates who said they were not interested in voting because they have been disappointed, over the years. Then all of a sudden you introduce violence. That would be sufficient reason for them not to vote at all. Now, the NPP went into this election to win by hook or crook, because if they did not win, the signal would have been wrong, in their view, and they would have started packing already before 2020 came. And so what did they do? As soon as the elections were announced, they mobilized resources, got contractors on the road, and they started constructing the roads by night. Now, remember that I have been a very active member of that constituency. Early November, we had a meeting with the new MCE. The Ghana Highway Authority was there. The Urban Roads Rep was there. The Municipal Coordinating Director was there. In fact, all the key people were there. And we're agitating for the fixing of our roads that had not been touched for close to 11 years. And the authorities were very clear. They said there was no budget. There was no budget to fix the roads. We complained about street lights. They were not too sure. But we left that meeting clear in our minds that there was no budget for the roads. So when the by-elections were announced and we started seeing the roads being fixed by night, I made a simple observation on my Facebook wall. I said, election fever in Ayawaso West Wogon, road construction by night. Something like that. Now, the NPP people came after me First, they denied. They said the roads were being fixed even before the honorable MP died. Then it turned into, attacks. And if you know me very well, I don't engage in that kind of, politics. So I decided to delete all the posts because, after all, it's my social media space. Now, while we're engaging in the door knocking and so on and so forth, it became very clear that the electorate were going to show the NPP the red card. They had become complacent, and the people did not want to listen to them, regardless of fixing of the roads, all of a sudden putting up street lights, distribution of goodies in the night. Their own foot soldiers, who they pushed out in numbers to go and campaign. Well, they took their goodies. After all, it is state money, and so they took their goodies. But wherever they went, they were rejected. And I think the results are quite clear that under 20% of registered voters turned up to vote, and of that number, about 12,000, of course, mainly their own people, voted for them. When the main opposition people, did not come out to vote, and majority of the people refused to come out to vote. So I'm reading the president's statement, and I'm wondering what he was congratulating Lydia Alassane for. It sounds a bit strange to me that you have such an embarrassing election, embarrassing situation, and you should be ashamed of the results. But our president, I think the whole orientation, the whole objective was to make sure that by hook or crook they took the seat or retained the seat. All right. And besides the election fever stuff and the goodies they shared, they also decided to get the security apparatus out there in support of their bid. Now, this is the first time I've been voting in Ayawaso West Wuogon since 1996. In 1992, I did not vote in that constituency because I was in Boku somewhere doing my national service, so I voted in Boku, Zebila to be precise. So I've been voting there, and at every election, you would have only 2 police officers. Where you don't have 2 police officers, you have immigration officers, fire service personnel, and in fact, in certain circumstances, you have only 1, because that place is not known for the kind of tensions and violence that you see elsewhere. But in this particular election, true to the orientation and the objectives of the NPP, I went to my polling station near Jowlu Junior High as early as 7:15 to cast my vote. And I was surprised to see that there were about 6 police officers, 6 immigration officers, and other people in other uniform that I assumed were fire service and prison service people. I did not get very close to. But I also saw officers, police officers, wielding machine AK-47 and so on and so forth. Now, it was a bit strange, but my whole orientation and objective was to make sure that I encouraged the people who said they were tired of the duopoly to come out and vote massively for me. So I didn't pay much attention. At about 9 o'clock, we heard the news about unfortunate development in Ayawaso, in the violation polling station. Now, it did not surprise me at all because I had caught the objectives of the incumbent. They needed to win badly. If they lost this election, it was their ticket out of government. So now you want to ask yourself, if indeed you claim that this is your stronghold and you have performed well as a party in government, you didn't need to fix the roads by night. You didn't need to bring street lights all of a sudden. You didn't need to go about by night sharing goodies. And then you didn't need to bring, your invisible forces wearing, military uniform, wearing mask, threatening, shooting, and beating people. I think if you ask me, I'll say that NPP lost the elections. I don't know where and how President Nana-Addo would come to the conclusion that Lydia Alhassan won. Perhaps in another, frame of mind. But for me, from where I stand, I think that they lost the election. They have only re-engineered the process so that they would remain in power. Now, there's some myth around Ayawaso West Wogon being an NPP stronghold, and I can tell you, I live in that constituency, I work in that constituency, I interact with the people there. Ayawaso West cannot be an NPP stronghold. Now, if you like, there was an accident of history. In the 1996 election, the election was called for Rebecca Akwele Adote instead of George Isaac Amu. And the numbers were small, the difference was very small. Now, Isaac Amu went to court, and it took a long time for the matter to be determined. Eventually, it was determined in his favor. Now, when the 2000 election approached, the people came together. NDC, NPP, CPP, PNC, everybody came together to right the wrong in the interest of democracy. So they gave George Isaac Amu an overwhelming support. That's how come NPP won that seat for the first time. It was not because the NPP people outnumbered anybody in that constituency and won over and over again. Now, after that, they put in their own devices and mechanisms to maintain the seat, and they have become complacent, and they are now insisting that it is their stronghold. But I can tell the NPP that when they put the schemes of manipulation aside, and we have a level playing field, they cannot call that constituency their stronghold. So now, moving forward, I have said over and over again that when it comes to democracy, there is nothing anywhere in the definition of democracy that talks about violence. There's no room for violence in democracy. Now, when it comes to elections too, elections are the vehicles that drive a democracy. In that one too, there's no violence anywhere. But it would appear that in in addition to getting people to the polling station to vote, violence has become part and parcel of the winning mechanism. So I remember very well previous elections, the threats of Ghana becoming like Liberia and Rwanda. I remember very well all die be die. I remember Yechere Bibi Kakra, all those things have become part of the system to create fear and panic. So peace-loving people who do not, who fear that something untoward might happen to our dear nation would, out of fear, go out there and, especially the floating voters, go out there and give it to the one that appears to be more aggressive and is willing to kill, maim, and do all manner of evil to the people of Ghana so that peace will prevail. But I think that as a people, we need to move away from that fear. For me, it's unfortunate that as soon as the violence took place, of course, we were waiting to get details because it would not be right for you to just hear something on radio and begin to run with it. So, for instance, earlier reports said 8 people were injured and 2 were feared dead. Of course, feared dead does not mean that they had died yet. But some people went beyond feared dead to say that 2 had died. Fortunately, it turned out to be false. And, we praise the Lord that people did not lose their lives because of, by-elections. The elements of vigilantism, if you like, this party thuggery around elections must be stopped with immediate effect. And usually, it is the party in power that must lead the way. Now, unfortunately, usually it is the party in power that has the access to the heavy weapons that these thugs use. And sometimes when regimes change and they find themselves at the receiving end, they expect those of us neutrals who have been pushing for good, open and accountable governance, even at the election level, they expect us to be their, if you like, comforters. But we have been consistent, condemning violence, cutting across regimes, and so on and so forth. So, Senator, I'm afraid that in 2020, we might have further lower turnout at the polls if what the people of Ayawaso West Wogon, who are politically aware, were saying to us, they had lost interest in voting and they were no longer interested in politicians. In fact, they were clear that politicians were the same. Of course, there's a difference between political parties and politicians, but some way, somehow, because the tools of elections are consistent and the same. Now, the act of going to vote for somebody based on a promise that they will never deliver, that disappointment is still there and strong. So we might be having very low turnout in 2020, but ultimately I can assure you that the NPP has lost 2020 already. They managed to get away with this one. I wish the injured speedy recovery, and I'm looking forward to leadership from His Excellency the President, that all stakeholders will be brought to the table, that we will collectively deal with the issue of violence during elections. Because you see, you may think that you have power today and you have access to the arms and ammunitions and you have access to all the resources and you can hire people and all the tools that you need to create fear and panic and get away with, elections. But let us just go to neighboring Nigeria. Now, my research around Boko Haram, for instance, tells me that Boko Haram and the rest were used by politicians to unleash violence on their opponents. Now, it came to a time where that was not sustainable. But they had already received training, special training, in how to unleash violence on people. And so they decided to create their own power institution. And now they are the state of Nigeria's biggest, enemy. Now, we must learn from Nigeria. So whoever is sitting somewhere because they want to hold on to power and are encouraging Delta, Invisible, you name it, they should be careful. And those of them who have managed to secure homes and properties outside this country, they should only cast their minds back how the Ivorian elite found themselves one morning in front of the Accra shopping mall in their 4x4s, completely lost. They didn't know where they were going. Let us learn from lessons around us. And if we say we are leaders, leadership comes with certain responsibility. Sometimes, as a good leader, you want to bend backwards and make sure that the right things are done. Leadership is cause, everything else is the effect. I'm looking forward to President Nana Addo calling stakeholders and dealing with this matter. Peace Council, CODIO, PPP, CPP, PNC, everybody else. All the statements we are making are only statements after the facts. We must look at the motives behind the action that was taken around Violation polling station last Thursday. It was because the NPP wanted to retain power. Now they have retained the seat. What next?
Interesting question. Mr. Emiliano leaves us with one question to answer. So what next? Well, before I come to Honorable James Agaga, let me just go through a couple more messages on our WhatsApp, on our Facebook platform, PAB-MCGH on Facebook. Maso Esodos Awito says, Senna, do you remember just last month the burning of BAD near Michelle Camp? I never understood how it happened until I saw these criminals building those levels of armor. There is a connection, and we must not sweep it under the carpet. This one says, Kwame Ejipon Dankwan says, good morning, Senna. Massa, our party must boycott certain media houses. Let's take care of our own and help them to grow. Whoever is surprised by the brutalities is now coming to Ghana. President Akufo-Addo promised us that. As for the Peace Council, their time will come. Charles Nyame Asamankese says, for them to choose the safety of human lives over a political interest alone I fully commend our NDC leaders for boycotting the elections. After all, the results has shown us that over 5,000 NPP electors voted for the NDC, and that's a good signal. And please, does Kofi Kumsung have a church? I need the direction as soon as possible. David McCaffrey Donyo says, as for the so-called neutrals, the least said, the better. They should keep pretending that they are not aware of these vigilante groups have become part of the security in this country. When Ghanaians get enough of this nonsense and this peaceful country goes down, they should remember they will all feel the heat. It says it's watching from Abidjan. A couple more messages coming from Efokofi says, Professor Santi, we cannot be hypocrites, hiding facts because of Akufo-Addo. Why are you shivering because of him? Let's do what is right. Say it as it is and point out the wrongs to our leaders. If not, we will destroy ourselves. We cannot be victims to these rascals. If you think attacking the former president and discerning minds who openly condemn activities of your failed government will deter them, then rethink over. There is problem with and in the government. People are dying, things are not good, and we cannot continue this way. Instead of protecting the 30 and over millions in the country, you're protecting your job by endorsing wicked acts being perpetuated on Ghanaians by the president and his party. The politicians have started speaking. I've started speaking this way because of the weakness people like you have started exhibiting. It is the responsibility of the NDC to protect its supporters and workers if the state fails to do that. The former president call is appropriate and right at this point. Van Kaufman says, we were in power when these animals were trained, and we did nothing. And here we are complaining about the activities on us. 2020, we are going to match them boot for boots, and that's coming from Van Corsen. Esai Kong says, good morning, Sana. I'm impressed by the submission of the lawyer, but the NDC have many things to do. As for the Peace Council, we are watching their callers. Raspito Ike says, we gave them the chance to operate when we were doing Father for All instead of dealing with criminals. Why are we crying today? Alex Stacy Smith says that the sole glare, Captain Budu is just lying through the teeth. And it is shameful of a man of his stature to his think if the truth can't come from such men, I'm afraid we are far from peace. Samuel Nyamisha says, I'm sorry, lawyer, this is why the NDC is relaxed on security issues. No, I think I've read that one. No. James Alvaga.
Good morning to your cherished listeners and my brother William Wilson, and of course my learned friend Eduji Tamaklu. First of all, I would like to express my deepest sympathies with the victims of the brutality, the unprecedented brutality that was unleashed by the so-called security operatives under the command of President Akufo-Addo. My brother, my learned friend Eduji, has demonstrated in his submissions how President Akufo-Addo cannot be absolved of the blame in view of the fact that he, as president of the country, doubles as the chairman of the National Security Council. And so, if a minister of state at the Ministry for National Security comes out and openly assumes ownership of the atrocious acts associated to those vigilantes who masqueraded as security operatives, then the blame squarely must rest at the doorstep of the president. And so we hold the president wholly responsible for the violence at the Ayawaso by-elections. In fact, I am not shocked that after gunshots had been fired and several people sustained various degrees of injuries and hospitalized in various hospitals in Accra, the president was unable to immediately issue a statement, at least to sympathize with the victims of that attack. In fact, he could not do so. Why? Because of his direct involvement in the attacks. And so he was ashamed of himself. I was therefore shocked that many people were calling for the president to issue a statement. Issue what statement again? Morally, you think if you were the one in his shoes, you would have been able to issue a statement and condemn what? Your own act? Because he deployed the men who visited Mayhem on innocent civilians who only went out there to discharge their civic duty by casting their vote to freely determine who represents them in parliament. So that is the country we live in now. The belated attempt to, in fact, as it were, condemn happenings at the by-elections, the violence, etc., has even compounded the president's woes. Because that statement, if you analyze it critically, shouldn't be coming from a president. Look at the statement carefully. He creates the impression that the by-election has contributed to the democratic credentials of our country. I have it here. I think the concluding paragraph is instructive. It says, the Ghanaian people have again demonstrated to the world their deep attachment to the principles of democratic accountability and the rule of law. Ghana's democracy is robust and will only grow from strength to strength. Signed, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. But, Senna, given the submissions so far made in this studio, starting with my brother Eduji and Williams, who was actually a candidate in the elections, can anybody by any stretch of imagination claim that the by-election at Ayawaso contributed to principles of democratic accountability and the rule of law? No. Can anybody? So the statement the president made was a belated attempt, but in fact, if he had even kept quiet, it would have been better. But this belated attempt has rather exposed the president big time. Big time. He was there. Now, if you juxtapose the president's own statement with that of the EC chairperson, Jean Mensah, you would immediately come to the realization that the behavior of the EC and the MPP government smacks of collusion. And that is why from day one, when President Akufo-Addo became president and people started drawing all manner of schemes just to give the chairperson of the EC at the time, Charlotte Osei, a bad name and hang her, we sounded the alarm bells that the MPP government under the leadership of President Akufo-Addo was up to something sinister. They have been able to carry through their sinister agenda. Today they have an EC chairperson who, even in the face of international condemnation of the election that was marked by violence, can look at Ghanaians in the faces and say The election was peaceful, it was orderly, and devoid of violence. The EC chairperson can look at Ghanaians in the face and tell us all these things. Look, he was a candidate in the elections and has demonstrated how at all the various stations he visited, heavily armed men were deployed at the polling stations. And so if anybody was in doubt that the acts of violence and intimidation did not occur only at La Baoleshi JHS polling station, I think what candidate William has said this morning should settle the matter. They did not only deploy many more security personnel approved by the state at the polling stations unlike before, but they also deployed heavily armed men whose identity remains a mystery across all the polling stations in the constituency. Now, my brother Duji, in his earlier submissions, has also demonstrated how a police officer was attacked at the Roman Reach polling station for daring to advise the heavily armed hoodlums that per the rules of elections, they needed to stay a distance away from the EC officers. He was immediately accosted and attacked by elements who were supposed to be a reinforcement to the earlier group deployed at that polling station. And so how can anybody suggest that the incidents of violence were limited to the residence of the MP? In any case, is it not the case that the residence of the MP is next to the polling station? Is that not a truism? So when the EC chairperson issued that statement and said the violence didn't occur at any polling station but was only limited to the residence of the NDC parliamentary candidate, what was she trying to tell the world? Cover up? We have no doubts. After all, that is why she was put there in the first place. So I am not shocked about what is happening. I think Ghanaians are wide awake. She sought to rubbish the claims, or if you like, the statement Kodeo issued. Kodeo's credibility is unassailable. They have over the years demonstrated that they are neutral and impartial. Their membership is drawn from respectable organizations in this country. Kodeo is not an affiliate of any political party. So why would Kodeo put out a statement out there with the view to tarnish the reputation of the EC and those who organized the elections? What do you think Kodeo would achieve by doing that? Kodeo is independent. They issued a report which was a reflection of happenings at the election. Their report is damning. They have chronicled incidents that did not only occur at the polling station at La Bawaleshi. So any attempt to create the impression that the violence, yes, it is true, our candidate was falsely imprisoned in his own house. In any case, why would you imprison a parliamentary candidate? Is it not the case that parliamentary candidates are supposed to have the freedom to move about and monitor the election? So in an election situation, if you falsely imprison a candidate, is that in itself not a tactic which should be condemned by all in no uncertain terms? This attempt to justify the attack on his house, that bikers rode and sought refuge in his home, justified the shootings, is untenable. Why? All of a sudden, the privacy of his home cannot be respected. Did anybody go for a court warrant to search his premises for firearms and discovered firearms in his house? So when people now come out and say the gunshots were first fired from the home of the parliamentary candidate, how do you justify that? What we can justify is the men who openly brandished sophisticated AK-47 assault rifles, whose identity as security officers has been denied by the police service of the Republic. That is what should engage the attention of Ghanaians. You see, we've been in this business for a very long time. And we all know how elections are conducted and how security is managed during elections. The best practice has been that because of the interest of the respective political parties, when it is time for elections, all political actors, namely the ministers responsible for security, state security, would usually step aside and allow the professionals to map out strategies for the management of security in the course of the conduct of elections. That has been the practice that we bequeathed to the New Patriotic Party government. And I challenge them. If we did not bequeath those practices to them, I want one of them, the security ministers, to come out and deny that blueprint was left for them to inherit. So no minister of state is supposed to meddle in the operational strategies of the security agencies of state, so far as the conduct of elections are concerned. And so for me, it is worrying that after the police had deployed men, remember that the fire service, the other security agencies were deployed at the behest of the police service because they are the lead security agency of state so far as the management of our internal security is concerned. So all the security, other sister security agencies you saw deployed at the election did that at the behest of the police service. Now we are hearing a Brian Achampong come out to boldly take responsibility for the deployment of people described as security operatives from national security. In any case, what is national security? That is a nebulous phrase. What is national security? So clearly, what Brian Achampong's position betrays is that the time-honored and tested practice that the NDC bequeathed to the MPP, that in election situations, the political actors must step aside and allow the security heads of the various security agencies to take full control, was bastardized. So the IGP and other security chiefs deployed their men, and a Brian Achampong, a minister of state, a political actor, also deploys men whose identity remains a mystery. So who were they? Were those agents members of the police service? Or were they members of the armed forces? Were they prison officers or immigration officers? I think it has been established in this studio that you cannot set up a security agency of state or raise an armed force without legislative backing. So immediately, Brian Achampong's statement that he deployed those armed men is illegal. It's a clear violation of our constitution. And we're saying that we should not even hold Brian Achampong responsible because remember that Brian Achampong is only a minister of state at the Ministry of National Security. In fact, what is called Ministry of National Security is what used to be known as the Security Council Secretariat. That is the secretariat which has metamorphosed into the Ministry of National Security. And so the roles they play haven't changed. Their mandate is spelled out under the Security and Intelligence Agencies Act. Their role is to coordinate the activities of the intelligence agencies of state. And the intelligence agencies of state are two. We have the BNI and the research. The BNI is the Internal Intelligence Security Agency, whilst the research is the External Security Agency of our state. These are the two agencies, what used to be known as the National Security Council Secretariat, is supposed to coordinate. In fact, to coordinate, not to take operational control of those agencies. Because remember that the BNI has a director who is responsible for the operational control of that agency. The research department has a director whose responsibility it is to manage it operationally. So you cannot have a standby force at a secretariat or a ministry whose role is that of coordination. You cannot do that. So what they have done is to create challenges for us as a country in clear breach of the Security and Intelligence Agencies Act. And I'm not surprised. If you've been listening to me in Parliament, I've had occasion to argue strenuously that, look, the establishment of that ministry was to further the political agenda of the MPP, because it was unnecessary to set up a ministry or elevate the Security Council Secretariat to the level of a ministry. Because when you do that, you create friction, you politicize it. You see, you create friction. But that is exactly what they have done. So today, clearly, they are supposed to operate under an act of parliament, the Security and Intelligence Agencies Act, which is supposed to have the mandate of coordination. But today, they have abandoned their core mandate and have descended into the arena of operations. So what then would be the role of the police, the role of the armed forces, whenever the police come to the realization that they have lost control of a situation? They look up to the military, they call the military in to intervene at that point. But today it's not the military that intervened. They called another paramilitary group, a parallel group, under the command of a Brian Achampong, to visit mayhem on the peace-loving people of Ayawaso, West Uagon. That is the security architecture President Akufo-Addo has established for the people of Ghana. And so I wasn't surprised that the police service, which has the core mandate of policing elections, had no clues whatsoever about the identity of those heavily armed men. Look, we have received information to the effect that the men we saw yesterday were trained at a military facility, a Suchari. Yes.
You see them in the boat.
There are pictures. We've seen pictorial evidence of training sessions. Luckily for us, for how long can those hoodlums run away from justice?
They can't.
Because of their unprofessional character. Shortly before their deployment, they took out their masks at a residence alleged to be the home of the Minister for State responsible for security, Brian Achampong. He should come out and deny.
He denied that.
That the home, the pictures we saw, that particular house doesn't belong to him.
He says so.
So whose house was that? Because that was not a police station. How do you deploy? Oh, it's a safe house for the national security. We're living in very dangerous times. You recall that not too long ago, the minority in parliament called a press conference to discuss the worsening security situation in our country. And in that press conference, we tried to draw the nexus between MPP political vigilante groups and the increasing crime rates in our country. Today, if anybody was in doubt about that particular statement the minority in parliament made, today haven't we seen the justification? Now let me ask you this question. Not all the men trained, the vigilante groups that were trained in Cape Coast by the three South African mercenaries, and if you like, the people who came from, is it the Czech Republic or so, not all of them have been absorbed by Brian Achampo at the National Security Council Secretariat. And yet, a lot of them were trained in weapon handling. So, how do you think they are able to sustain their livelihoods? So they simply take up arms, go into the streets, and resort to acts of robbery. So we try to establish the nexus. And trust me, crime rate is on the ascendancy because of the behavior of the MPP in the months leading up to the 2016 elections. So today, contrary to their own campaign manifesto promises, we're in a heightened state of insecurity in our country. I don't want to bore you with crime statistics today. The last time when I came to this studio, I demonstrated how alarming the increases in crime rates are. I mean, across board. The mystery surrounding the numerous murders that we have recorded, contract killings, which is alien to crime analysis in this country, has now become the new normal. But let me advert my mind to what the UNDP said, which for me undermines the statement the first gentleman of the land has made in response to the violence at Ayawaso. And the UNDP is not a political organization. Kodeo is a local group, but their neutrality over the period has been tested and proven. UNDP, United Nations Development Program, also took note of the sad developments at the Ayawaso by-election. And it was stated by Ms. Gita Welsh. She said this, and I want to quote, "We strongly condemn such impunity," mark her words, such impunity, and brazen acts of violence which undermine Ghana's hard-earned democracy and peace. Unquote. Does this statement not sharply contradict what our president told us when he said, and I quote, "The Ghanaian people have again demonstrated to the world their deep attachment to the principles of democratic accountability and the rule of law. Ghana's democracy is robust and will only grow from strength to strength." This is a sharp contradiction to what our president is telling us. The UNDP is impartial in these matters. They are neutral in these matters. And so the international community will take their word more seriously than what the partisan President Akufo-Addo has to tell them about the elections at Ayawaso, West Wuogon. Now, let me state categorically that the statement President Mahama made following the attacks at Ayawaso West Wuogon were very, very appropriate. In fact, I would even say the tone of President Mahama's statement was very mild indeed, because we're living in a country where the president, time without number, has demonstrated that he's not in charge. Remember when Kennedy Japan exhibited so much recklessness, which without doubt resulted in the death of Ahmed Swale. We extended an invitation to the state security apparatus to arrest him. Have they arrested him? We demonstrated in law that Kennedy Japan's liability, even aside the murder, he could be dealt with for other crimes. They just didn't act. Under the watch of this president, who is the chief guarantor of the security of Ghanaians, the state security apparatus did not act. He did not even deem it expedient to speak to the people of Ghana. We sort of liken the murder of Ahmed Swale to the murder of Jamal Khashoggi. And why not? The two were journalists. Jamal Khashoggi was an outspoken critic of the Saudi monarchy, and so they decided to kill him in that brutal manner. What did Swale also do? He exposed corruption in Ghana football, and in fact most of the revelations. Yeah. So to even implicate the presidency, the president's name was mentioned.
The sharing formula.
So if the man is shot dead, you see the similarities are very sharp.
5:3:2.
Yeah, the similarities are very sharp. But our president has not even addressed us on the murder of Ahmed Swale. Has he issued a statement to that effect? No. But at about the same time, several other high-profile murders happened in this country. The PRO of Gapoha, Joseph Ginger, also lost his life. The Mankralo of Pram Pram. Now I am being told that a few days ago, the chief of Dodo was also shot. He nearly lost his life. Okay? The president never found it necessary to speak. But President Mahama, as the former first gentleman of the land, is respected by a lot of Ghanaians. He was the commander-in-chief of our armed forces, the chairman of the National Security Council. And so when there are security breaches in his country, and those breaches are politically aligned, you expect the president, who once led the NDC as president, to fold his hands and applaud the government of the MPP for their misconduct. So for me, the tone of former President Mahama's statement was even mild. In any case, what did he say that was wrong? What did he say that was wrong to warrant an attack on him by the Peace Council? What did he say? This is the statement. I want to sound a caution that the NDC has a revolutionary route. Is that not a truism? And when it comes to unleashing violence, no one can beat us to that. He never said anywhere that the NDC will unleash violence or has unleashed violence. Now, President Akufo-Addo latched on this part of President Mahama's statement and made the point that the MPP is not in competition with any other political party in unleashing violence on the Ghanaian people. Is this true? Is this an accurate reflection of what happened at Ayawaso? Now, we all know those who shot at the innocent, peaceful Ghanaian citizens who went out to cast their ballot. We all know those who opened fire on them. Now a minister of state has taken full responsibility that he deployed them. President is the chairman of the National Security Council, so the deployment was not done at his blind side. Do you see? So violence was unleashed by the president's agents. They have already unleashed violence. So if he says they are not in competition with any political party in unleashing violence. That is not accurate. They have already unleashed violence. And the president is only reminding them that, listen, what you have done, don't think that we are not capable of doing same. So whereas his men have unleashed violence on innocent Ghanaian citizens, we have not done that. We're only sending a warning to them. Do you see? The civil society, and not all of them, the Peace Council, have the courage to condemn the MPP roundly for the acts of violence and intimidation that was witnessed at the by-election. Did they do that? The condemnation was very vague in its character. Very vague. All the wounded. Have you identified one single member of the number that was admitted as coming from the MPP? I stand to be corrected. None. So how is it that if it was an exchange of fire, at least one person from the camp of the MPP should also have sustained injuries? So what happened was a clear attack. It was a clear case of an attack on innocent citizens who were not armed, who were brutalized by political hoodlums who received training unlawfully under the watch of our president.
Okay.
So we're sitting on a time bomb, and I think that moving forward, we have only one country. Ghana has a reputation for deploying peacekeepers to restore peace in war-torn countries. What is happening now compromises that enviable role we have occupied from the days of Kwame Nkrumah, because it's beginning to dawn on the international community that but Ghana itself is increasingly becoming a very turbulent destination. So back home, if you cannot guarantee the safety of your own people, how do you send out men there to do what? So if care is not taken, we may even compromise certain rights we have enjoyed at the level of the UN, and which is why this government must set up.
Okay. Thank you very much, Honorable James Agauga. Just a couple of messages before I come to Mr. Wilson to wrap up on the first topic. And this one, Ekan McLean Erickson says, I endorse the saying from JJ in 1984 that if they pull a gun, you also have to pull a gun. And there, both of you will sit to negotiate. Well, that's from him. Alex Stacy Smith says that major players are all saying 2020 looks bleak, but only the ruling government disagrees. But funny enough, government is the main perpetrator. Isaac Badita says Delta and Invisible Forces can't be our national security officers. Please, MPP must be voted out of power come 2020 for peace, security, and national development for us all. Abdulaziz says the entire leadership and followers of the MPP worldwide can't stand one young wise Sami Jemfi. Let me get a couple more of those messages on our Facebook platform, PAB MCGH. If you're watching us and sending up messages there, we are grateful to you. And this one says, Apia Samuel says, I'm watching from Italy, Modena. Why did NDC chairman stop the guy from attacking them back? Please, Sami, tell the chairman that if he's a pastor and he can lead NDC, he should resign and someone who can do the work should come. That's from Apia Samuel. Tall Marvin says that if you are not born to be a leader and you force yourself onto people, you will not have the wisdom to lead. As Agula Alexander says, Sana, we are living in the state of insecurity so far as Akufo-Addo remains the president of this country. Paulus Ejuri says, I hope the NDC will boycott the swearing in of the 19% elected parliamentarian. Combat Medic says, unless it's not clear.
Her hands are soiled with the
Yes,
blood
yes, of innocent Ghanaians.
Yes.
So we're not going to do that.
At least the man he
Won't
is
defend that
replacing at least acted peacefully.
Yes.
Okay.
You cannot replace peace with blood and violence.
Well, Ken G says that, Sana, I think if this is what the NDC is going to behave like, then they should forget about 2020. Kofi Komeja says, don't mind that man. He said, we all regret supporting him. I'm not clear. What Habiba Seku says, MPP have started training people to attack NDC since Rawlings' time, but they were exposed. I remember in Kamina Barracks in Tamale, there was one soldier man now dead who went to Ouagadougou and brought civilians to be trained against the National Democratic Congress. Well, Kojo Ngwesa says, please, anybody knows about the well, it's very unclear. That particular message is unclear. Well, we have one message from our WhatsApp platform. Unfortunately, we're having a problem with that. And it says that I am an MPP sympathizer. But what I want to know is, can you prosecute based on all that you guys are saying? If so, prosecute. Prosecute, even if possible, prosecute the President Nanado. Help stop him from further inflicting pain on Ghanaians. We all saw the footage. He is responsible. The president is responsible. Other than that, you are not helping Ghana. So that's from our WhatsApp platform. Emmanuel Wilson.
Yes. Sana, good morning. Good morning to my colleague panel members. It's been a while since I saw my senior, James, and I'm happy we are meeting. William, Happy New Year and congratulations on your good fight. I'm sure better days are really ahead. And to my boss,
I beg you.
it's okay, I won't continue. I'm going to be very brief on this so that we can move to the next topic since a lot has been said already. But a very quick one before I get in there. Just 2 weeks ago, that is 24th precisely of last month, COYIS, that is the Congress of Youth Economic Empowerment Seekers, of which I'm a convener. We traveled to Takwa to go and have a press conference and engage with aggrieved customers and victims of men's gold. We were able to outline some few things and we discussed some few things and we made some proposals which quickly included that the head of IOCO with immediate effect needs to be sacked because he has not been able to do what he needs to do or what he's supposed to do. The same way we called for the head of SEC, and that is Mr. Ogbami Daniel Tete, to also be sacked because he did not do what needed to be done. We went further to request or demand from the presidency to set up a commission of inquiry so that we can really go into this matter and ascertain the exact issue that is happening for us to know how to resolve it. At the end of the day, COYIS believe that it is the solution that we should be looking at, and we must look at how best we can help protect these individuals, innocent customers and victims. We then indicated that investigation should go just beyond just one person being the CEO, because over the past period, particularly from the government, the posture is that without the CEO, nothing can be done. But I know that Men's Good is a limited liability company, which means it goes beyond just one person. We are requesting for the state to investigate and identify the shareholders and all the directors, board members, so that we can get to the root of this. No one is calling for the state to use the state's money to pay their aggrieved customers. What we are saying is that the monies that were illegally collected from the customers, the state should be able to find out where those monies are, retrieve them, and then give the monies back to their owners. We finally gave an ultimatum of 10 days, 10 working days, which will end this coming Thursday. And we said that if after the 10 days, working days, the government has not done anything with regards to the things that we've raised, then we will join hands with all the aggrieved customers across the country. We'll join hands with all well-meaning Ghanaians across the country for us to walk all the way to the Flagstaff House to ensure that justice is given. It is just fair, because that is the reason why we elected the president, and that's the reason why we continuously are using the taxpayers' money to pay the president to ensure that he's comfortable. So if he cannot execute the mandate for which he's being paid to do, then as a nation we need to wake up. And so that's what we'll be doing. I want to appreciate all members of COYIS for the yeoman's job they did, particularly when we went to Takwa. It was such a fantastic process, and I'm confident that we are going to make a significant inroad. Now, after saying that, yesterday, Senna, something happened, and I want to seek your indulgence to mention it. On my way coming home or going home yesterday, and that was just around 9 p.m., in a traffic, I was approached by a gentleman. And so I rolled down the glass, and before the glass I could finish rolling it down, another gentleman joined him. And they asked, "Are you Emmanuel Wilson?" Before I could say anything, the other person said, "We are watching you." In an angry tone, they said, "We are watching you." And again, before I could say anything, just after making this delivery, they walked the opposite direction. After having some consultations over the night, this morning I've been to the police station before getting here to lodge an official complaint. It tells us that I was threatened yesterday night. It tells us that as a nation we are not really safe, and it is worrying, it's alarming. This morning at the police station, the policeman I met and the CID that I met, they were very good. They gave some security advice to me and all that, but they reiterated the fact that this is something serious that I need not take for granted, and obviously so. I think that we've gotten to a dispensation in this country where all of us need to be worried. If you cannot go to work and come home peacefully without receiving a threat. Indeed, yesterday night into this morning, on reflection, what came into my mind was that few moments. I could have been shot down. I could have been attacked. Anything could have happened to me. If after doing what I need to do, decide to move home, and I'll be stopped in traffic and I'll be threatened, I'm not sure whether it is to gag me from pursuing what I have been championing these 2 weeks with regards to the men's good issue. I am not sure what exactly it is. But whatever it is, this will not stop some of us from talking. This will not stop some of us from pursuing what we believe is right and needs to be done. And so I am sounding a caution to all listeners and viewers that it is important for us all to take our security into our own hands, and let's protect ourselves wherever we find ourselves. Let's see how best we can guide ourselves, Now, coming to what actually happened 2 days ago at Ayawaso by-election, the first thing I need to state is that I am not really surprised that it turned out that way. Indeed, even though I wasn't expecting that the impact would have been this intense, I knew clearly that there wasn't going to be a free and fair by-election. And the reason why I knew this way before the election day was on one or two premises or reasons. The first one, if you look at the 2016 election, the information gathered is that the late MP won by about 57% of the total votes. Now, this election, the by-election, the MPP's position and approach wasn't necessarily about winning. It was also to ensure that no matter what happens, the 57% that they had in 2016, they were either going to maintain it or go a step ahead of it. And so they knew also that there's a lot of disappointments based on their inability to perform and act, based on their own promises and their own manifesto provisions. And they knew also, being in touch, they knew clearly that the by-election was going to be a reflection of the realities on the ground. And they realized that if they should allow the election to go smoothly, the results, the end results, will communicate and will expose the reality. And that will not be good for them, particularly as we have just about a year, or less than 2 years to go into the general election. They knew that if the by-election doesn't go well for them, it will affect significantly their chances. Now, approaching it about a day or two, I am confident that they realized that clearly things were very bad. Turnout is going to be very low. 2, aside turnout being very low, the number of total voters that will turn out, they may lose the election. That was a probability, a very high probability. And so how best do they avert this, or how best do they ensure that this result does not expose itself? With all this, I knew, as I indicated, that they were going to ensure that there won't be a free and fair election, just for them to protect themselves. But unfortunately, I think they went beyond, and it is clear that they just didn't want to leave any stone unturned. So they went to the extreme. And in getting to the extreme with the intention of just winning election, with the intention of just protecting and saving their face, with the intention of ensuring that the disgrace that would have approached them if there was going to be a free and fair election, they needed to avert that disgrace. They ended up wounding and hurting innocent Ghanaians. It wasn't anymore about protecting the citizens. It wasn't anymore about ensuring that the provisions of our constitution is adhered to. That which was driving the MPP, and for that matter the current government, was the fact that they needed to do anything and everything possible so to be able to move away from the disgrace that would have approached them, the disgrace that would have embraced them if the elections had been smoothly conducted. And so I want to add my voice to those victims. Fortunately, we've not received any confirmed information that any of them has lost their life. And so we want to thank God and want to thank their lives. Thank God that as we speak, we've not really lost any life, because that is the only thing we will not be able to reverse. Those in critical conditions, I'm hoping and praying that they will receive and they will respond to treatment so that they will be discharged. Okay. Those in all other stages, the prayer and the hope is that they will be fully recovered so that they can move out, But in diving deep into it, the first thing I want to look at is, one, the boycott by the NDC as a political party. When the announcement took place, I was on TV when the breaking news came. So I was on TV, and I quickly took a position, and I still stand by that position. I wouldn't go deep into it this morning, my position is that I wasn't expecting the NDC to have boycotted that election. But again, I want to be fair, particularly to the chairman and the executives of the NDC. It is possible, and I'm assuming, that they may have gotten some other intelligence and some further information that informed that decision, which I may not be privy to. But till those information come into my knowledge, I am still of the view that there could have been other means to handle this situation other than boycotting. You see, the 92 election taught all of us something significant. And as politicians, we should never forget about it. You recall that some political parties, including the PNC, boycotted the parliamentary elections. It did not prevent the election from taking place. And indeed, that boycott, to date, has affected some political parties, including my party. And so, under no circumstance should boycott be the first option. Under no circumstance. 2, if you are a leader and you give this communication to your followers, what you're telling your followers is that when 2020 election comes and we are being intimidated and molested, mind you, what happened in this by-election is just a dressing rehearsal for 2020. If nothing practical is done, what we saw, worse things will happen in 2020. Are we then going to say that if it repeats itself in 2020, the NDC is going to boycott the parliamentary and the presidential elections? No. And so if this election was a dressing rehearsal for the NPP and the Akufo-Addo-led government, I was expecting that, being a key stakeholder, particularly the largest main opposition, you should have also put in contingencies to ensure that you would have identified probabilities and possibilities and said, okay, if they should go this way, this is how we want to go about it. If they come this way, this is how we want to go about it. But as I said, I think that I still do not share in the position of the NDC for boycotting that election. Better things and better approach could have been taken. And if that had been done, I am sure it would have sent a good signal that opposition parties are indeed prepared and well prepared for the 2020 elections. Now, after commenting on that one, I will also want to make a comment on what the former president said. And unfortunately, I have heard, after listening to him, I have heard others, some institutions also making comments. Now, when the former president said that the NDC will be meeting the MPP in 2020 boot for boot, I share in the same position with my big brother James, that I think that what the former president said, for me, is even a bit too below and too soft. He should have gone beyond what he just said. In that, you see, when you say that you are going to meet someone boot for boot, the presumption is that the person will be setting the agenda and you'll be following. So the person approaches and then you counter approach. But in 2020 election, I'm expecting all the opposition parties to go into it with the mindset that we are going to set the agenda. They will not create the mayhem. We will go in to protect and ensure that that which is our constitutional right, we are protecting it. And that means we will take every means, we will leave no stone unturned. And I was so surprised when the president, quickly after the former president has made this statement, the president had the moral gust to find his voice. I was of the impression that the president was not even in this country, till I heard that he made this pronouncement and statement. And what did he say? Trying to play the emotional card. We are not going to compete in violence, and we are not going to meet anyone, boot for boot, and what have you. After deliberately orchestrating all the violent acts, right from the presidency, through your security minister, and bringing it on board and ensuring that what you went to plan, you've been able to execute it successfully. And innocent Ghanaians who have been beaten up, innocent, unarmed Ghanaians who have been beaten up. And this is a man who is supposed to be the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, in charge of our security. He sees no wrong with that. And he rather comes after the innocent ones who have been brutalized, get some hope in a leader in the form of John Mahama, coming out to give some words of encouragement and some words of assurance. He then decides to come, the supposedly chief of the commander-in-chief, comes and tells us that he's not interested in fighting, and then he's not going to compete in violence. And I keep asking myself, are we really serious as a nation? For the president to even have this gust to respond to this, when all issues that have taken place bordering on insecurity in this country, the president has not found his voice. He comes out now, and this is the best thing he can tell us. It also tells us that this president is indeed insensitive, and he doesn't really care. If you are an ordinary Ghanaian like me, like you, we shouldn't be going home thinking and believing that we have a commander of the armed forces who has our security interest at heart. We should be able to find a way of protecting ourselves. And so the president's comment is, for me, very bogus, and it is useless. I mean, to look for a better word, lack of better word, I want to use this charitable word. It is absolutely useless. What he came to say, he should have just kept quiet without saying anything at all, I was also amazed when I heard the Christian Council also finding its voice just after the former president has come out to make that statement. And listening to the chairman of the Christian Council, at a point he was telling all of us, Peace Council, National Peace Council. At a point he was telling all of us that he doesn't want to move into politics. But it is amazing. Peace Council itself, maybe the chairman didn't understand what he meant by politics. He probably failed to appreciate the fact that we have partisan politics and then politics in itself. Because the mandate and the work of Peace Council, it revolves around politics. I never heard Peace Council condemning what happened in Ayawaso. All I heard was Peace Council condemning what the former president said. I never heard Peace Council coming out to tell the president to make a statement and a comment on what has happened in Ayawaso by election. But I heard Peace Council coming out to condemn what the former president said. And I am wondering if this indeed is the posture of institutions that have been mandated. Then where are we going as a nation? The other part which I find a bit worrying has to do with the NPP itself as a party. You heard the communications director. The first thing I heard him say was to justify what happened in Ayawaso and present it in a very boyish, childish way, that the perpetrators were actually individuals that were brought to the place by the main opposition party, that's the NDC. That the NDC will want to go and bring in tax to come and beat their own members. It doesn't make sense to me. That the
St. George assaulted
yes,
himself.
that the NDC will plan that we want to bring in tax, and when they mobilize the tax, they give them instruction that when you get to the scene, when you see St. George, beat St. George.
No, and the tax were in SWAT vehicle only owned by the Republic.
Now the NDC will go and mobilize tax and will be able to get access to AK-47 and will be able to get access to state accoutrements, state national security vehicles, and give it to their own tax and tell them that go to the scene or go to the polling stations and go and create mayhem. If indeed we voted for the NPP to form a government and they can sit down for opposition political parties to have access to national security gadgets, then it tells us that we are not safe as a nation. But why? So now what is even alarming? You know that this man, Boabian Samwa, is an MP of Adentan constituency. Today, Boabian Samwa is justifying, illogically justifying, what transpired at Ayawaso by-election. Where was Boabian Asamoah when his constituents were being killed like fowls through vehicular accidents? Remember the last one where this student of WAS was knocked down and she died in a pool of blood, and there was chaos in Adentan constituency. Boabian Asamoah was comfortably enjoying himself outside Greater Accra, and nothing pushed him, even if he's not going to run straight to Accra to come and show leadership in his constituency. Nothing even moved him to quickly issue a statement consoling or giving hope to his constituents. There was nothing like that. And yet today, this is the same person who has the audacity to be giving reasons and justifying the terrible violence that took place in Ayawaso West Wagon. I think that as a nation and as electorates, we should start revising our notes, particularly at the constituency levels. Let us start questioning and revising our notes as to the individuals and the caliber of persons we end up electing to represent us. Okay. Because we are not supposed to elect persons who will go and represent their selfish interest and the interest of some individuals just in their political parties and some individuals who are supposed to be their paymasters. We are supposed to elect individuals who will go and represent us. One, represent the interest of the constituencies, and two, three, represent the nation as a whole. If Boabian Asamoah indeed has any of this interest at heart, he wouldn't be making those childish comments and childish statements that he was making. Okay. And I feel that as a nation, this really is a worry. The other part, bringing it to the conclusion, the other part has to do with what the National Security Minister said. Brian Echampong,
Minister of State.
Minister of State. Yeah. I was amazed when Brian described the Ayawaso West Wagon election as one of the most peaceful elections. But I'm not surprised. Though at a point I was amazed, but I'm not so surprised. You know why? He would describe it as one of the most peaceful one. In other words, the plan and what they decided to do, they were able to do it successfully. And that is what makes it.
Yes, its peacefulness relates to the operational
Success of it.
of what they decided.
What they planned to do, they were able to do it successfully. To the extreme, they wanted to frustrate the system to the stage where the NDC will show some level of frustration and then even decide that they are backing up. They succeeded in doing all this. And so he can confidently describe it as peaceful. But it is even so worrying when you can have a whole electoral commission also describing what transpired as very successful.
Very shameful.
If what transpired just 2 days ago can be described by the Electoral Commission as very successful, Senator, then we have a big problem as we go into 2020, because then we should be questioning the standard, the definition of success in the eyes and in the dictionary of Ms. Jean Mensah. Okay. We should be able to question it, because if you can intimidate persons to the extent that we can have a voter turnout of less than 20% in your first election, by election, less than 20% decide to come out to vote, and you can call it successful.
It was shambolic.
That we have over 88,000 voters, and less than 20,000, just about 17,000 out of 88,000 plus, just around 17,000 decide to come out to vote, and you call it successful. But in all this, in concluding in all this, for me, it sends one signal, which is, it gives me some level of comfort as we go into 2020. And that signal is that Ghanaians have clearly shown that they are fed up with this incompetent, corrupt government. Okay. And as a result of that, even though, despite all the intimidation and all that took place, the MPP in this election, out of 88,000 persons, they could only win this election that practically they contested alone. They could only win it with just about 12,000 out of 88,000. They could win by just 12,000. It tells me that yes, Ghanaians are fed up. Ghanaians have seen the incompetence of this government, and as opposition parties, we need to sit, revise our notes, strategize, and see how best we can leave no stone unturned as we get into the 2020 general elections.
Thank you. And a message from Kojo Chumbuafo says, Senna, I can't for the life of me comprehend why the NDC is crying a river over the brutality meted out to us during the Ayawaso West by-election. Let's all recall that we were well aware that these brigands and buccaneers were being armed and trained during our era in power. So those who are in charge of security should come and tell us exactly what they did about it. We caught mercenaries from South Africa teaching the MPP how to subvert the rule of law. So before we stop crying, we should inquire from those who should have acted 3 years ago why we are where we are. That's from Kojo Chumbuafo. And a couple more messages from our WhatsApp platform. This one says, hi, Radio Gold, I thank you for the good work you're doing. Please, what happened on Thursday should be a wake-up call for the party. I suggest that all branches should form an election task force towards 2020 elections. Efo Ganyo says that Reverend Professor Asante was being at his hypocritical best. All that he was seeking to was to pigeonhole President Mahama into Mr. Nice mode, like what they did to late President Mills. President Mahama, please wise up to these tricks by this so-called clergymen. Reagan from East Legon says, good morning. The so-called Peace Council of this country is an evil council led by men of devil from Tafai Namrehia says, I now understand why Kennedy Japan said he doesn't trust our police officers, especially the IGP. When the NDC executives asked IGP whether the uniform the guys were wearing yesterday belongs to the police service, he could not give a definite answer. The answer he gave was that he will investigate. When he was shown the pictures of the police vehicles that the guys were using, he could not tell them how those guys got the police vehicles. We're told that those guys come from the national security, but I don't want to believe Honorable Kandapa will sanction this kind of lawlessness. But he is not the only minister for national security we have. Musa, okay, that one I've read from Facebook already. Stella from Tema says, good morning, Senna. Reverend Professor Emmanuel Asatni is one of the Reverend I respect so much, but I was so disappointed in him for the interview Sami granted him on your station yesterday. What was he talking about? Is it not politics issues they engage in, or are they on payroll? Is a question I am asking. Heaven going after the deaf will be difficult for many people in this country. God have mercy on us, these so-called pastors in Ghana. Sir Prince in Amanasi says, in fact, all MPP should bow their heads in shame. We have witnessed a lot of by-elections in this country, but this recent by-election is more than war. I know this will only happen under this current government. Please, my fellow Ghanaians, don't vote for violence government like MPP in 2020. Ganya Joe in Abuja says, Senna, I'm enjoying the submission of all your panelists. However, I want Honorable Agaga to explain to us why they were not able to prevent the MPP from bringing mercenaries into the country to train their terrorists while they were in office.
You see, for instance, some of these things require response. The South African mercenaries came through McDonald's security company as though they were coming to train his private security boys. Then behind, they went training party security people. It's important we put these perspectives. Immediately our people became aware, we saw what happened.
Okay. This one, Kwekwe in Accra says, hi, Radio World. Every responsible Ghanaian must wake up and advise the president about what is going on in the country. Many people told Ghanaians about the wicked character of the president, but we did not take it serious. Everything is going bad, and responsible people in the country are sitting down unconcerned, waiting for the worst to happen before they talk. It will be too late. Serious action must be taken now to save Ghana from the war path. We are one people, and we must live united in peace. Asanko in Santa Maria says, is Bobian someone describing the NDC as cowards because they withdrew their agents from the polling stations? He must be told that the NDC are not cowards. They are rather civilized and law-abiding, and so did not carry with them weapons to counter MPP's lawlessness. Lawless terrorists. By the way, was he expecting the NDC to engage them in their barbaric and uncivilized behavior? Dr. Nyalulu finally says, hello, Senna. We are not in this country. Were we not in this country when someone from the camp of MPP prophesied that he cannot sleep with his eyes closed when Nana becomes president? What did Ghanaians do after hearing that commentary? We still got him. We still got him, and he will not allow us to sleep with our eyes closed there. I want to tell Ghanaians that for refusing to do nothing about that commentary, but rather seeing the clergy giving endorsement to this, God is going to punish us for that, and no matter what we do, the fulfillment of that commentary has come to pass, and Ghana will know no peace till God comes. If Ghanaians don't revisit that commentary again and change our mind, I am not a prophet of doom. That's from Dr. Anyalulu. And finally, this one says, Paging Mensah's special logic on an elections day. If hoodlums come to my home just when I step out to go and partake in an election, or meet me along the way to the polling station to vote and they kill me, I was not killed because of the elections, because it did not happen at the polling station. So according to her special logic, my killing has nothing to do with the elections, right? Well, that's a question coming from one of our listeners. And,
But the attack on the police officer was at the Roman Ridge polling station.
I think she even
Edem Abana was attacked at Legal
Hall.
Yeah, so where is this coming from?
Koplavi of Pokwasi Bengazi said the MPP government boasts of rule of law. That's the law of a country allowing MPP invisible forces to shoot innocent voters, break into people's houses, and beat them up, and threatening of citizens. Election 2020, he says no mercy for the cripple. And he says, we NDC members are not afraid of guns, cutlasses, clubs. We shall march and break up. Also, those are just some of the messages that are coming through. Just to acknowledge my sponsors. Kulum Ghana Limited is one of our sponsors. They are producers of Mr. Q for vitality and for men who want to improve their sexual performance. Kin tablets for high blood pressure, and Araba Bazeng for control of menstrual problems in women. You can get all those medicines in licensed pharmacies nationwide, and they are one of our sponsors, Mr. Kulun Ghana Limited. So 3 products: Mr. Q for men, Kin tablets for high blood pressure, and Araba Bazeng for women. And also from Franco Trading Enterprise, and they are doing a couple of special things at their shops. First, if you go to their shop, they have reduced the prices for all Alcatel phones. Alcatel 1, Alcatel U3, Alcatel tablets. They have reduced the prices of all those phones, and all their phones are affordable anyway. But in addition, if you use www.francotrading.com or www.francophones.com or the Franco Trading app from Play Store to make a purchase from Franco Trading Enterprise, first it will be delivered free within Accra. If you're within Accra, it will be delivered free of charge. And then secondly, you get a 30% discount on any purchase you make from them. And also, Mobile Water also wants you to make the right choice and choose Mobile Water 20 liters bottle. So just get one of that, and well, you'll be happy you did. So they are the sponsors of the program, including Titi Brothers. Well, let's move on to the next topic. We seem to have exhausted a lot, majority of the time, so we'll take just brief comments on the second issue, and it has to do with the corruption perception index that was released earlier this week. We have improved marginally in terms of perception of corruption. Let me start with Mr. Dogbo.
Well, Senator, thank you very much. I am not surprised at all at our position when it comes to the perception of corruption. Way back in 2008, research was done by some civil society organizations, and they pegged the cost of corruption and wastage at about $3 billion, not cedis. And so I'm counting from 2008 to present. That would be conservative about 30 billion cedis, that $30 billion that we lose to corruption and wastage in this economy that is abhorring and struggling to, if you like, put body and soul together when it comes to the majority of the people of Ghana. As for the political elite and those who manage the resources, they serve themselves well, and yet they are the ones who perpetrate the wastage and corruption in the system. Now, we in the Progressive People's Party have said that our governance infrastructure, the way it is, promotes corruption, especially in the public sector. Now, the executive has been given excessive powers that should be toned down. And we have said that for us to have open, accountable, good governance in this country, the executive must be separated from the legislature so that we'll have a strong legislature that will serve as adequate check on the executive. That will reduce corruption significantly. Now, we also made a very key policy reform proposal. That is to separate the Attorney General's office from the Ministry of Justice. You know that they are combined. And the Attorney General works directly under the instructions of the President. And so you can imagine, the checks will not be that effective. Now, it sounded well. It sounded nice to the NPP. You know what they decided to do? They decided to re-engineer that policy vision and appointed the special prosecutor. Now, who has, by the arrangement, still been put under the control of the same, Minister of Justice. So, for 2 years, we have not seen one prosecution from that, office. Now, we still insist that to fight corruption in this country and make progress on this perception, index, we must have that independent public prosecutor who is not a card-bearing member of any political party, who works independent of the Attorney General. Now we raise constitutional issues, and the lawyers will tell us that that's not possible. But it is possible if you, amend the portion of the Constitution that says that prosecution must be done by the, Attorney General. We must look at what would work for us. The Constitution was promulgated way back in 1992, about 26 years ago. Now, if we have run it for all these years and we find some mischiefs and elements that do not work for us, we must necessarily review and do what is what will work for us. So, in order not to take other members' time, I would say that until we separate the Attorney General's office from the Ministry of Justice and have that independent prosecutor who would go after everybody and anybody without fear or favor, all the talk about fighting corruption would not lead us anywhere. The status quo remains ante. We have Martin Amidu, special prosecutor, still having difficulty with the Minister of Justice and Attorney General because, as the law stands now, he cannot prosecute anybody without the approval of the Attorney General. So, did we go or did we come? The status quo remains the same. They have only re-engineered the, otherwise, positive, competent proposal and brought us back to square one. If we really care about fighting corruption, let us have the independent public prosecutor.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson.
Yes, Sana, just a quick one. Your friend from Ahunto FM, Dugbe, he says I should extend his greetings to you. Okay. He's listening. Yeah. Now, on this issue of corruption, I have heard commentators from the ruling government indicating that because we are one step ahead, it means we are fighting corruption and we are doing very well. There's this international magazine called Homes the Afrique magazine. It is largely circulated in the Francophone countries on the African continent. I will encourage everyone who has, who can, to look for the February edition that came out yesterday. It is also on their website. It describes our president as the most corrupt president as far as the Fourth Republic is concerned. And it is alarming, it is alarming. And if you look at the reasons given, you will really appreciate and understand the position. This is a magazine that doesn't have its office in Ghana, but has been able to make this assessment and make this conclusion. I think that is worrying. Clearly speaking, anyone who wants to tell you or tell any of us that corruption is best being fought under this government, that person doesn't really understand and appreciate what corruption is all about. I am happy that the response, the result that came, the report that came, is just talking about perception. So perception means that there are no tangibles to it. That is how people perceive. But in reality, when we talk of corruption, it is not just monies exchanging hands. Corruption also comes in the form of abuse of power. And 2 days ago, what transpired is a form of corruption. Now, corruption comes in a form of nepotism. And if you look at the list of individuals appointed by the president, no one will tell you that this indeed is the most corrupt president we can ever have or we've ever had. Exactly so. You understand? And so this report, it is not really anything that moves me much, whether good or bad. It doesn't move me, because the reality, the fact speaks for itself. And the fact indicates clearly that this president indeed has lost it. He doesn't have what it takes. He's not even in charge of his own government, not to talk of being in charge of fighting corruption. You cannot fight corruption when you are using dubious means to award contracts. You cannot fight corruption when you can tell me that you've approved 132,000 Ghana cedi to drill a mechanized borehole, which is just costing about 32 or 35,000 Ghana cedi. You cannot tell me that you are using $2.5 million to go and get into what we call national identification card, when in reality, your own thank God, was the Kennedy Japan, comes out to tell you that, and tells all of us that, look, this we can use about 500 million to do. You cannot do all these things and tell me that we are fighting corruption. I think clearly that we should, for me, I keep praying that we should pray that God will give us the life for us to get into 2020. Because as opposition parties, it is mandatory that we save this country from the terrible, incompetent, corrupt management by this government. But finally, let me also reiterate that with regards to what happened 2 days ago, NCC issued a statement. And for me, the content of it is worth looking at. And I think that I will use this platform to congratulate NCC. They were very apt. I think when the issue took place, they issued a statement before the elections even came to an end. And yes.
NCC has been most disappointing. Can you imagine that in this by-election, NCCE could not organize one debate for the contestants to tell the people of Ayawaso West Wugon what they were going to do and how they were going to lead this constituency? Please.
All right. So you are talking in terms of they not creating a platform for a debate. I am not going to contest that, and I'm not going to speak for NCC because I'm not NCC spokesperson. But I'm speaking specifically to their reaction with regards to the release that they gave. I'm speaking specifically to the West and how they were apt to condemn the act that took place. And I'm saying that with particular reference to that act, NCC needs significant commendation. Okay. Because if other institutions like Peace Council and Co. had also taken the same posture, I am sure that it would have been very good for us.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much. I'll just do quick. This issue about corruption, I have always indicated that the Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo administration have demonstrated extreme proclivity to corruption. We have also shown that the government is very, very corrupt, very lazy, mediocre in terms of their performance, and a complete waste of the time of the good people of this country. In fact, if you pick the overall performance of this government, you come to only one conclusion: a complete waste of our time. Look, Transparency International, if you look at their score, even the worst score under the 4-year rule of John Mahama is still better than what we have now. In 2012, it was 45. In 2013, it was 46. In 2014, it was 48. 2015, it was 47. 2016, it was 43. 2017, from 43, we dropped to 40. And then now, 41. So even on the basis of this score alone, like the lawyers you say, the thing speaks for itself. I have always maintained that, look, imagine a situation where 22 million Ghana cedi worth of fuel can be diverted premise. Nobody has been held accountable because the minister's brother was the chair of the National Premise Fuel Committee. So nobody, and you know how the minister is so close to Nanado. Nothing will happen. 600,000 Ghana cedi, 600,000 liters of fuel can evaporate into thin air. The corruption going on, but for the vigilance of the minority, a website costing less than 80,000 Ghana cedis was going to be given to Ghanaians for 800,000. When they were caught, thing that you wrote red, black and white, you say no, it was a typo error. But for the vigilance of the minority, a building worth over $2 million, $3 million was going to be given to the government of Ghana for $12 million. I mean the Oslo embassy affair. So there have been many issues of corruption under the Nanado Dankwa Akufo-Addo administration. I will continue to say that Ghanaians have a perfect opportunity in 2020. But before I end on this corruption thing requires a whole day so that we can discuss it properly. Because you see, so I will just leave it. But you see, I want to, I don't know, maybe a friendly advice. A friendly advice. Maybe he's hearing me. He has been promoted. Colonel Opoku, the Director of Operations at the National Security Secretariat. I am begging him wherever he is, he should go and pick the Securities and Intelligence Agencies Act and see whether under that act, as Director of Operations, he has any lawful mandate to deploy masked armed men to assault civilians in the manner in which he did. He must know that today he is protected by Nanado. The maximum Nanado can rule this country, maximum will be 8 years. There is a day of accountability which is coming. He must also know that there is no statute of limitation to criminal activity. If he is not aware, he should go and pick once again the Securities, the Intelligence Agencies Act and read specifically what is mandate. Those young men, they have trained at a Suchare that they have deployed on that election day. He must begin to put his house in order, because there is going to be a day of accountability. And let him never, when he appear before any court of law, say he was taking superior orders. Because under our criminal law, when an act is unlawful, it matters not who is giving that authority, not even the president. So immediately you maintain because you see, what we should know is that the National Security Council Secretariat does not maintain a standby military group. What they do is to coordinate. So immediately there is a flashpoint. It is based on your intelligence. Then you say, police, go here. Military, go here. You don't maintain a standby force. So when Brana Champon, who is only a political head, you are the civil servant. So Mr. Colonel Opoku, I know you very well, and you know me too very well. I am just giving you this friendly advice. Let no politician use you. Because you see, the day you be speaking in court, that politician will not be there. Okay. It will also not be a defense when you are in court to say you took superior orders. What happened on that day at Ayawaso is a very big dent. And I want the military high command, because you are still a civil military officer, for the military high command to probe this matter to its logical conclusion. Before I leave, please, 1 minute. I am begging that we need a bipartisan committee chaired by a high court judge or a superior court judge to investigate this matter. Because this is very serious. It is a harbinger for 2020. If this matter is not resolved, if this matter, the brutal shooting of NDC members is not resolved, my brother, I will not say boot for boot. I have indicated on this platform that the first rule of nature is self-preservation.
Thank you.
Honorable Senator, my learned friend is charged. But let me state that a lot has been going on at the National Security Ministry, and we've had occasion to caution them. First of all, we now appreciate why they have refused or neglected to submit annual reports on their activities to Parliament. And so Honorable Okujeto Ablakwa found it necessary to write an open letter to the Minister for National Security. They came out and rubbished that open letter. And I stated that we shall vindicate the position of the law. And so come Monday, would serve them notice in accordance with the State Proceedings Act. And so maybe Lawyer Eduji, you should lace your boots and give I and my brother Okujeto legal representation. It is because they don't submit annual reports to Parliament on their activities. That is why Brian Achampong can come out boldly and say I deployed. So if they are submitting reports, we'll question them. Under what authority? Under what authority? So Eduji, take notice. You would have to give us legal representation in this matter.
I have taken instructions from you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Senator, on corruption. Look, all I would say is that our abysmal performance on the score sheet of Transparency International is not shocking to me, because we have a government that lacks the political will and courage to investigate its own. And President Mahama has said it time and again that it's very easy to target political opponents for investigations. Whether the charges are genuine charges or trumped up charges, you can prefer them. But what is very difficult to undertake is when your own party appointees, political appointees, have committed acts of corruption and you are called upon to investigate them. That's the real test. And so, like A2G has demonstrated in this studio, several corruption allegations have come and gone without any credible investigations. In fact, the Flagstaff House gained the accolade, of a clearing house. That in itself is a dent on the image of the presidency. Okay. And so whenever the allegations come, we have investigated, they have been cleared. We found nothing, no credible investigations. And so when you have a government, a president, who superintends over impunity when it comes to corruption, what do you expect? Our performance will continue to be abysmal. President Mahama demonstrated the fortitude in dealing with corruption. So whenever corruption allegations were raised, he caused them to be investigated. His own government appointees were put before trial. Remember the case of the National Service. 4 people suffered convictions The executive director was arraigned before court. Talk about JIDA. A lot of money was recovered. And who says the fight against corruption is all about convictions? When an act of corruption is committed, I think the first thing the state should be interested in is the recovery of the proceeds of corruption. We did that in the case of JIDA. A lot of money was recovered. We all talk about Smarties, the bus branding saga. Do you know that all the monies that were illegally charged and paid was recovered? Who is talking about the recovery? Nobody. You see, so it's unfortunate. President Mahama cracked the whip whenever corruption allegations were made. Today, are we seeing that? All we see from the presidency is we have investigated. They have been cleared. Clearing agency. So let's get serious with the fight against corruption.
Honorable, just briefly, Eddie.
Yes, I just to read something so we can conclude on this. The first major allegation of corruption in your government was the shady sale of contaminated oil by busts. The Minister of Energy, Boakye Ejako, set up a committee to investigate the matter. In less than a week, that same minister held a press conference to announce that the Bureau of National Investigation had conducted an investigation and cleared the boss managing director of any wrongdoing. It sounded strange, but that's how the case died. My sources, whom I have no reason to doubt, have told me that you played a role in stopping the probing of the scandal. My sources say, when the minister set up the committee, you were not happy. My sources say you were misled into believing that Boakye Ejako was on a vindictive warpath against the boss MD because he and the MD were not on the very best of terms. According to my sources, you called Boakye Ejako, reprimanded him for acting in such an important issue without your orders, and asked him to reverse the decision. The result is that shameful press conference the minister held to make a mess of himself and your government in the boss scandal. Your body language towards corruption and your words are in the opposite direction. Manasseh Azuri, 22nd December 2017. So this is a guy who is even more sympathetic towards Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo. He says our president's body language moves in opposite direction with his words when it comes to the fight against corruption. I end there.
Thank you, Lawyer Godwin Eduji Tamaklo is one of those who joined us today for the discussion on the mother of all talk shows, ALHAJI and ALHAJI. It was proudly sponsored. We also had in the studio Honorable James Agaga, who is member of Parliament for Bolster North and ranking member of Interior and Defence Committee of Parliament. Mr. William Dawokpo is was parliamentary candidate for the PPP. They just ended the Ayawaso West Wagon election. Lawyer Mr. Emmanuel Wilson is Director of Communications for the PNC and the convener
of quiz.
Let me just look for it and pronounce it properly. It's a new group. It's a convener of Congress of Youth Economic Empowerment Seekers, and that is Mr. Emmanuel Wilson. Joins us more regularly than a lot of people we have today. Well, the program was produced by was sponsored by Mobile Water, and they are telling you. They are telling you that you must choose the Mobile Water 20 liters bottle every day. You must do that and instantly refill. They do an instant door-to-door refill, and they want you to take advantage of that. And you drink positive, drink Mobile Water. Mobile Water, unique in every way. You can call their hotline 0244-650-939 for instant supply, or visit them at Tema Headlight Industrial Area behind Mark Baron Hotel. And also Franco Trading Enterprises, they have reduced the price of Alcatel phones like Alcatel 1, Alcatel U3, Alcatel tablet on the Ghanaian market. Their phones are also affordable, and if you purchase from their online platform using www.francotrading.com or www.francophones.com and buy from their online shop, and your phone will be delivered free within Accra first and at your doorstep. And also you get up to 30% discount on every product you purchase on their mobile through their mobile app. Well, and also Kulun Ghana Limited are offering 3 products: Mr. Q for vitality and for men who want to improve their sexual performance, King tablets for high blood pressure, and Arabazin for control of menstrual problems. Well, just to say a good afternoon to you, Mr. Fianco. You are listening to us live from Koforidua. Good afternoon to you. And also a happy birthday to Captain Frida Awai, nursing officer at 37 Military Hospital. May you live to see many more of today in good health, strength, and wealth. That is from Fred Goka to you. My name is Senna. The show is produced by Patrick Asford Boydwe. A big thank you to you for your messages from both PAP and CGH and using our WhatsApp platform. Big thank you to our sponsors, and hopefully same time next week, by God's grace, we'll be back.